Today we'll be doing the Skellige tier list for December 2025. In Gwent, all the cards will be ranked today. And we'll have the excellent tier for the best cards in the faction, either incredibly strong things you build your deck around because they're that impactful, or just really good cards that you can use in a wide variety of decks if they're incredibly flexible, like a little bit of a boost in the rating. But cards that just fit in one deck but are really good in that deck still make it up here. We have good cards which are good in their decks, but maybe not the best thing in the faction. They have solid value, but aren't overpowering necessarily, or they just feel like they're pretty solid, is what I'd say for these. Okay cards are ones that are slightly worse than the good cards. Maybe you don't always play them in your deck. They're an option. Sometimes you feel like you want to run them. Maybe in certain metas, it's slightly better than the cards above them, but usually you'd leave these out and prefer the things above in the good tier. We have the niche cards here. These are cards that are incredibly specific, and there's not usually too many here. These are cards that are very hard to rate, either because of some design thing, or they're very meta dependent, or they're incredibly overpowered in some situations, but those situations don't usually happen. But maybe that's where the meta comes in. Sometimes you can make them work. Very unusual tier. These cards aren't necessarily worse than ones above, they're just incredibly specific. So they have their own little ranking here. When we get to one, you'll see what I mean for this. We have weak cards, which are they're just a little not quite good enough, not quite strong enough, almost there. These are cards like you'd maybe like buff and they'd be pretty solid. But they're cards that right now you don't really want to play usually unless you have a very good reason. Bad cards are just really bad. These cards need buffs. And they just need some buffs here. 1 second, let's turn off the GOG. Don't want any more pop-ups there. Someone else get featured today. But yeah, the bad cards aren't quite that great. They don't want to play them. It's basically what it comes down to. They need help. And meme cards are just unplayable other than for fun. And sometimes fun is what the game is about. Actually, I'd say all the time is what the game is about. It's having fun. So sometimes the meme cards do make some entertaining games. That being said, if you're trying to just compete, don't play these cards, and usually have some kind of design issue where they can't reasonably be expected to be buffed into a playable category ever. So they're going to be stuck here, unfortunately. Let's begin with the golds here. As always, we're going alphabetically, and we'll start off with Arnagod. Arnagod's an alright card. Previously, Arnagod would be a niche, because there is the Sucrose Arnagod combo where he clashes every unit your opponent plays without taking damage. That's incredibly specific, incredibly all-in, usually does not work out, but Arnagod on its own is actually an alright consideration for Witcher decks in Skellige. Usually he's not your first choice. There's stuff that's better. But the Skellige deck with Witchers does have very good synergies with giving him a bunch of armor on his deploy, which he gets for each damaged unit, and then he can clash 1 or 2 cards, and it's pretty alright. But usually you'd rather run one of just the pure removal Witchers, like Geralt or something. But he's an okay card. Nothing you'd really go out of your way to play, but I wouldn't say he's too bad. Arngvald here is... Arngvald's in a weird spot, where if you buff him, he's just probably just too good value-wise, but I still think he's weak. He transforms a damaged unit into a Bear Abomination. So you're going to use on your own cards, damage allied unit, and then you transform, say, a 1 into a 6. Mix it an 11 for 6, which is actually pretty good. The issue is there's better stuff to do, and transforming a damaged 1 is not that common. Usually you're going to have things that, yes, you can damage your own stuff down, but you need to get value off of damaging your stuff down in the first place, and then he pays off like doubly. The issue is if you're damaging a card to get value out of it, you usually have some other way to get value. So for example, with Totem, say you're heading like a Queensguard, you're probably going to heal the Queensguard anyway with something like Sarah's Fearless or a Singer. So you don't need the transform effect. And there's not that many of the self-wound cards that want to get hit down to 1. And actually, I don't think any of them do. So he just doesn't really have a spot. He's more of a value card, and there's not really a place to run him. So he's going to stay in weak, I think. Artist is a very interesting, very cool card. I'm going to also put him in okay. He plays a cultist from your deck, usually going to be a Small Blood cultist, or the, what's his name? Berserker, the guy transforms into a Bear Abomination. So he usually plays 11 for 11, and then halves each unit when it's played for the rest of the round. Both you and your opponent. It affects the opponent first because the one you play will obviously trigger a Berserk effect and transform. So the opponent's getting halved first, and usually your deck is better suited to play around having your stuff take damage than the opponent. So usually it gives you a decent amount of value. It is row locked and it is expensive. So it can be hard to build your deck around. We take a look here for a second at Artis. That is what I thought. Artis is 10. Why do I have the wrong Artis here? Sorry about that, guys. We will make a quick adjustment there. All right, so we have Artis here. As we said, we changed the image out real quick there to get the correct one. For those of you who use Tier Maker, please explain to me why when I add one image, it adds a big barrier to the side of it. When I add two, it doesn't. Who knows? But anyway, Artis is, I would say, pretty good as a card. The problem is he doesn't have a spot he fits in, so he's kind of like Arnagad, which can go in the OK tier. You play him, he's 11 for 10 when you play him, which is pretty nice. You get that nice deploy effect, and you play out a cultist from your deck, usually either the Fanatic or the Berserker, and then you're getting a whole bunch of points on him right away. And every card both players play gets halved. Usually better for you than the opponent, which is nice because you're going to be playing into that self-wound synergies. And that is pretty nice. The issue is usually the opponent is going to either deal with the Artis or have cards that they can play around it with. And he is in 5 damage removal range, which makes him pretty easy to deal with. That being said, he does play for tempo at the same time. And at 10, you can revive him with Fukusha. So you can kind of make a deck around him. The issue is there's generally just better stuff to do in Self-Wound than set up an Artis, which kind of puts him down here in the OK tier. Next up, we have the... Ooh, this is a tough rating here. Axel 3 Eyes. I'm going to say Axel 3 Eyes still belongs in good. It's 10 for 7, unconditionally, if you play a melee row. Not premium stat line, but pretty close. What makes him so good is that his points are spread out, and he activates several synergies. You can use him to activate alchemy synergies with druids. You can use him to just spread out a bunch of points for a wide deck. But more importantly, the ranged effect transforms 2 crows into the messengers. That is integral to the messenger deck, which is a pretty decent deck. So you kind of need the Axel. So he's pretty good in that deck. I don't think I'll put him in the excellent tier just because his pure value isn't quite there anymore. But he's still a very good card for those decks. Birna. Okay, let's grab the discards together. Where's Birna? Where's Coral? Can't really talk about them individually. Where's Morkvarg? Morkvarg we can't talk about individually. We'll talk about these two at the same time. I won't skip ahead to the bronzes. So, Coral and Birna are both very good. Cycling your deck to find your good cards is important. Discarding cards doesn't matter if you weren't going to play them anyway. And for anyone who's into like deck building and stuff, you probably have heard of the idea of the rule of 16, which is that you are only probably going to play 16 cards from your deck, and tutors help you find the better of those cards. Discarding the cards that aren't the best of those cards to find the better ones is very good. And Birna does it with some tempo because you're getting 8 for 8 on her for the 2 damage, and you can combo that with the stratagem. You can combo that with Birna afterward for more damage, which is good value. And obviously you can discard things that give you points right away, so they're both very good. Coral, I believe, is a little bit better, thanks to the damage, but the Birna 2 discards and 2 draws is nice. I do think I'll put them both in good. Do I want to put them both in good? I think so. There is some other advantages here where Skellige has some graveyard synergies with things like Blessing, where you might want to put things in your graveyard earlier, which is pretty good. But I overall think they're quite good. I don't think they're in the excellent tier because their consistency is not there. Sometimes they're going to screw you over and you're not going to get the cards you want to see. But I think for the most part, they're good. Same deal here with our Clash Boy here. So you guys a veteran, and then usually playing with pirates, you get a bunch of armor on your Bjorn Ironsides. And then eventually you get a bunch of armor, you clash the opponent's unit, and you kill it, which is pretty nice. Not the best removal, pretty much only for pirates because they need the armor for him to be pretty good. But in that deck, he's pretty good. Blood Eagle. Blood Eagle pretty much exclusively used to find Highland Warlord. But still, I think it is a good consistency card. The fact that he's Bloodthirst 3 or Death Blow for it to tutor anything is sometimes an issue. It's not an issue for the Highland Warlord decks, though, because they'll just buff up the amount of damage it does, so it can like kill something. Outside of that, though, the fact that it needs a Bloodthirst or Deathblood makes it a bit hard to use, which is why it's pretty much relegated to those Highland Warlord decks, where it is extremely good. But again, it's not. I would attribute that power to Highland Warlord, not necessarily this card. But it's still good. Blue Boy Lugos, between good and okay on him. He's very good in specifically Golden Necker Self Wound, where you want something that does damage, and he has a good value for it. I will give him the okay, I think. I'm between these. I personally really like Blue Boy Lugos. I'm trying not to be biased here. I think we'll go with okay. Good card to have in those Golden Necker decks specifically, but that's it. And at 7, there's often something else you would want to run instead, because those decks have a lot of good mid-provision cards you want to run. But I think it's a decent option. And specifically, like we said, in certain situations, some of these cards in okay make more sense than the ones in good, depending on exactly what you're building. Obviously, we can't rank every card every situation, but we're trying to see them in their best situation, where they're most commonly used. And I think that we'll give him an okay, because I don't see many other people playing Blue Boy. I think it's mostly just us, but still, not a bad option. Probably some better ones out there, but he's not too bad. And also keep in mind, like, there's going to be like 30 cards in each tier. One's going to be at the top of the tier, which is basically the same as the bottom of the tier above. So you can argue them up and down. I think this makes sense for me. Bride of the Sea is pretty good, specifically for druids. Can also be used in rain with some bigger alchemies, like right if you want to be a bit fun. But overall, just good value. It's kind of like Axel, where Axel's playing that Rhizome for value. She can play Rhizome for value as well if you've already played one, but she can also play other cards. Specifically, very good at replaying either Dimerium Shackles for control, or replaying Mahakam Ale to unlock with Ale the Ancestors for extra points. Very good flexibility on her, which is why I'm going to rank her as good for druids. Oh, here comes a very interesting one. We've got Ceres. Now, Ceres is... I don't think I've ever seen Ceres played for the not Shield Maiden, not the summon out of deck effect. Trying to think here. How do we rate her? She's really played with Lippy decks, because you play her, thin out to 2 cards with the self-wound charge. For those of you who would like to see, that is the wrong side here. If we go back and take a look at Ceres. The Shield Maidens here, they are at 5 now. So when you play her, you get a 5. You ping it with a leader charge, you pull 10 out of your deck, right? So you're doing 1 self-damage, so 4, 4, and 10. It's an 18-point tempo play that thins 2 with 1 leader charge. I think Ceres is underutilized outside of Lippy decks. That being said, if you're playing Ceres, there's a very good argument to make the Lippy deck, because you'll get an extra one when she does her thing again. And if you want to be really extra on it, you can do Megascopes and make it when you shuffle your deck, you have like 6 or 7 Shield Maidens in it, ping them, and you get a huge amount of points. I think she's underutilized on her own, but the thing is, whenever you try and make a deck with her, you just end up realizing it'd probably be better if you Lippied it. Overall, though, she is very strong. I am debating between these 2 tiers here. I think the fact her decks aren't that great might hold her back from here. She's a very good card, though. I think I'll go with good. Her effect is very impactful, though. Usually, though, the thing that's not putting her in top tier for me is that usually you'd rather Lippy with Shoop or Lippy with other cards instead of Ceres at this point. So we'll maybe try her out in like a regular Self-Wound type deck where she probably will be good, but I think we'll leave her in good. Ceres Fearless. Ooh, this is a tough one to rank. Golden Necker Self-Wound is probably my favorite deck at the moment, and this card is extremely powerful in it. Let's see how we think about this. I think she has been nerfed. 3 is a lot easier to remove. She thins out your deck at a time of your kind of choosing, depending on how you play your cards. Sometimes your opponent can force you to use self-wounds early, but she comes out of your deck kind of at your choice. She comes with tempo because of the heal order. then damage, which often will end up being some kind of benefit the opponent has to deal with her. She can make ongoing incredible value engines out of things like Queen's Guards. A lot of potential. A lot of potential, which you will usually realize. I think we'll leave her in good, though. I think I'll leave her in good. After the nerf, coming out at 3 is kind of a big difference, so I think we'll do this. Champion's Charge is also good, specifically for the decks that are either playing the Fratricidal Fury Leader Charge, where you can guarantee you have the 3 Bloodthirst, or they're going to play Raid Warriors, where usually just having this as a way to remove something really tall if you need to, something that's immune to damage like a Sigvald, you just run this because you want to have that option. And if you don't have that option, you can usually just throw it for a bunch of damage at them anyway. I think it's a pretty good card in those decks. Corrupted Flamenica is incredible. One of the most efficient finishers in the game. 8 provisions, she'll usually boost by about 20 to 24. It's 2 for each unique beast, so you can make decks completely around her. Well, that's not entirely true. You're going to play decks with the beast and her in mind as the finisher. You play her for like 25 for 8. That is like better than Granther Golden Child a lot of the time. And thanks to Magic Compass and Fukusha, you can play her round 2 and round 3 often, which is why tempoing out round 1 and dropping her at the end of round 2 and Fukusha her round 3 is such a strong game plan for things like Renfrey midrange with the beast. An incredibly good finisher. It's also in Golden Echo range, you can play her in there. And like I said, since she's less than 10, you can Fukusha her, get that deploy again. Very, very strong effect. Great synergies with the discards. You can discard random beasts that are 4 provisions you put in your deck that you don't want to play anyway. And then she gets bigger. And a lot of the beasts thin themselves out. The fact that Roach and Knickers are neutral beasts that thin themselves out round 1 tempo fits perfectly in this game plan, which is why they're so good in this deck. But yeah, overall, I think this is an excellent card. The Defender. So, the Defender. How do we talk about this? So, Defender is really only as good as what you're protecting. That being said, Defender in Skellige is extra good because you can bring it back with Surface Right and with Fukusha. I'm going to say this is a good card. Usually it's played in Self Wound that goes tall with Melusine, just for setting up carryover, or for Sucrose Arnagod, that's not as common. Usually it's Melusine, and then Sigvald behind for a bunch of uncontested points. Very good for that. That's the only deck I've ever seen her really played in, other than the aforementioned Arnagod stuff. But I think she's really good there. She's damaged, she gains armor each turn, makes her hard to kill over time. You really need to hit her with one big removal. You can do like 2 Boiling Oils or something, 2 5-version removals will get her, but it's a bit annoying. And then she'll just come back. So you really need to remove her, like, hard remove her. Makes her a bit of an issue. She's very good. I think we'll leave her here, though. Croc on crates. Let's put Croc kind of fallen off in favor of Yalmar for pirates. I still want to put him up here, though. Croc is such a strong pirates card. You play him, you give armor to cards in your hand, and then he's at that 1 damage per turn order. 7 is pretty hard to remove, and obviously in the context of him being in a pirate deck, he'll have like 10 armor or something, so you really have to commit removal to him. And then if you don't, every time they play a card, they're just going to like destroy your lowest power unit, because their cards are going to have a bunch of armor, yours won't, they clash. You have to deal with Yalmar. It's kind of one of those cards where if you don't deal with it, it will probably win the round. And I think for that, he deserves to be up here in the excellent, because he is 11 provisions, you can't Fukusha him anymore, but that effect's very strong. He comes down with a decent amount of tempo as something that's hard to remove. Like 7 is pretty hard to remove, like I said, he has armor, and he just carries you around. Very dangerous for the opponent to deal with. Crow Mother, also can go up here. Most carryover cards are very powerful, and Crow Mother's extra powerful because she synergizes with some very good cards. So you can make decks around her where you, not around her, but decks with her. She spawns those crows, transform them with the Axel 3 Eyes, pretty ideal for crow spam. And Alchemy, the fact she comes back each round is really nice, especially because with the things like Elfin Onion Soup, you can destroy her, You'll spawn new cards and just get her back. Overall, I think just having this for carryover, one of the best things for druids. Dagger. All right. We are a known Dagger enjoyer, but I'm still going to drop him in the OK tier. Dagger's just a Golden Necker warrior card mostly. That being said, Golden Necker warriors having Dagger as a way to just pay off long rounds is incredibly strong. Works great with Hemdall, works incredibly well with Morkvark Heart of Terror. Those things that do a lot of little damage. So it can have a very high ceiling. He is row locked, which is annoying. One of those things you might want to put behind a defender, but typically you're going to play him in a Golden Necker deck because if you're not playing Golden Necker Warriors, there's just better stuff to do. But specifically in Golden Necker Warriors, you want an upper range card that can get you a lot of points. Dagger's your man for that type of stuff. I still say his other options are probably better than him, but he's not like a weak card or anything. I think he's all right. Next up, we come to Delirium. Has some interesting uses with things like Compass. Compass is going to be... We'll try and keep Compass short. But has some interesting uses. And it just gives you a Bronze Beast or Human, puts the other one in your graveyard, and does it again with Golds the next round. I think OK fits Delirium pretty well. The fact that it's an Alchemy usually doesn't matter. For Alchemy decks, I don't play this. This is more so used in decks where you can take advantage of the gold multiple times, or just want the extra cards, or you're generating things with the Casino deck, where you're just going to have Rune Mage out or something for extra create copies. I think Delirium's probably actually down here, to be honest. I don't think it's as good as these other cards. Yeah, we'll put it down here in weak. It's not unusable by any means. Like, I don't think you're going to use Argynvol, but you could use Delirium. I just think it has very niche uses. But it's not terrible, and sometimes you get high rolly with it, which is the fun part. Darren. Am I crazy if I do this? Is this crazy? I really value Darren's consistency. You know what? We're going to put Darren up here. This might be controversial. Now, Darren, I'm putting up here for two reasons. One, that thinning out a card of your deck is a very, very good effect, especially in a faction that can replay them. So you're going to send Crow Mother, and the really big thing is that you're going to send Iris from the neutral pool, and then boost all of your units by +1 for your Renfree deck. So it gives you an instant way to trigger Iris out of deck when you play it. That effect is incredibly strong, and one of the reasons Renfree like Skellige is so good is you have this immediate access to sending the Iris. I think that interaction in particular just puts him way up here, and just sending anything you want is a good effect as well. I think this is fine. I could see people putting it down in good, but Renfree Warriors, Renfree Skellige has historically been one of the most popular decks in the entire game, and one of the very, very good decks. And this card just enables it because of sending the Iris so well. And then sending Crow Mother is the other one that's really good. You pretty much always want to play this with Crow Mother to find it. I could see this being knocked down to good. I think it warrants up here though. I highly value consistency. Dire Bear. One of the cards has been changed via the Bounce Council in an interesting way, whereas the Berserk is always active now. Always active. The opponent cannot boost on the opposite row. Usually that doesn't matter. Usually the opponent will just play things that boost on the other row. Sometimes they can't. Like maybe they have a big row set up. So you're playing Northern Realms Knights and they have their Grey Stuff range for their scenario. They can't really avoid playing boost range. But overall, I don't think it's very good. The effect is too specific. You just have other things you would rather do, to be honest, than play this. Because once I go tall, you can play a tall punish for about the same provision cost, right? This is 9. You could run like at 10 an extra Geralt or something and just kill the really big units they're boosting instead. So Dire Bear thinks it's just too niche of an effect. You don't really want it most of the time. And you'd rather have something else. Jenga, it's an okay option. Specifically for Patricidal Fury decks, you can give your opponent one of the Siren charges and just always have Jenga ready, which is fine. The issue is Skellige doesn't really care about Devotion most of the time. They specifically care in like Warrior decks with War of Clans and stuff, but those decks don't need the lock because they have so much damage that they're just going to kill your stuff anyway. They don't need the lock. And otherwise, those decks are the ones mainly playing Patricidal Fury. Outside of that, the other decks playing Patricidal Fury are like Sihil, or other decks that are heavily damage reliant, and Skellige as a faction has a ton of damage, so they don't really struggle for control, which means you often don't need the Jenga. But it's not a bad card if you end up playing a deck with Patricidal Fury specifically that you want some more control in. Not a bad option, but usually just unnecessary due to the amount of damage you have in the faction. But I wouldn't say it's weak. I think it's just all right, and that the other options are better. Donar is pretty bad. So this is 5 for 7, 2 damage. Then you've got the Bloodthirst for 4 damage. Yeah. 4 damage doesn't really cut it anymore. There's been a lot of power creep over the balance council of 4 provision engines being buffed to 5, where 4 damage isn't often enough to kill important things anymore. So I think that, for 1, the threshold really hurts him, and for 2, he doesn't do that much damage in a faction, like we said, does a ton of damage. As you can already see by the cards we've seen here, right? We've seen a lot of control cards. I just don't think he's good enough. I don't... Do I put him in bad? I think I'll put him in bad. The Bloodthirst setup's annoying too, because you have to wait turns to be able to remove something. So in that case, usually you're just playing Donar for value, because you have to have the Bloodthirst setup unless you're in Patricidal Fury. If you're in Patricidal Fury, you want to use those leaders for something very impactful, like maybe a, like we said, the Champion's Charge, maybe something like the, if you're being more creative, Madmoine Lugos. But Donar's like way down on that list of things you'd want to use the leader charges for. So you really need him just to get value on his own, and he does not. So I'm putting him in bad. Draco Turtle, very good card. Prior to its nerf, which was, at the time I was recording, like last month, a couple weeks ago, would have been an excellent tier. It has been nerfed, which makes me a little question leaving it there. That being said, I still see it quite a bit. Very strong effect. So Draco Turtle gets armor each turn, and then when he takes damage, the armor turns to points. So you play him, you do your Svalblood, you hit him with Mardrome, that type of stuff, and all of a sudden, instead of him going from 5 with +6 on the Mardrome, he goes from 5 +9 from the Mardrome, and then an extra 3 from the damage. Suddenly he's at 17. And then that effect keeps scaling if you have other things that just want to self-damage. Works great with things like Knut the Callous. We already mentioned Svalblood, Svalblood Totem. I will leave him in excellent for now, I think. I think Dracotor is very, very strong. This one I will mention, it could be lower, thanks to it being a very recent nerf, but I've still seen it pretty high level. Okay, let's just drop them up here too. So, Drake is one of the strongest cards in Raid Warriors, and Drake's not that. Drake is incredible. So let's talk about Drake here. So Drake sends one of your guys to the graveyard, then he triggers a veteran. You're gonna send something with a veteran, and the thing with Drake is you send the card and you click it, and he has a cooldown 1 on this. Now, triggering a veteran of a card in your graveyard might not seem like the strongest effect, but again, this is consistency. You're thinning your deck, which is very good. You're thinning your deck with upside because each time you trigger the veteran, it's effectively 3 points. Because you will bring back, typically it will be on the card you're going to use on your War of Clans and on your tier round 3. Sorry about that break there, guys. Got another phone call from my favorite caller, suspected spam. I love calling me like multiple times a day. My favorite thing. But anyway, Drake, like we were saying, every time you click the Drake order, it is 3 points of carryover. Because you get 1 point on it. It's going to be on the Chirsek veteran, whatever it's called. The 4 provision that's 7. Yes. I always get their names mixed up. But yeah, you're going to trigger a veteran on that. That's 1 point of carryover when you War of Clans at round 2. And then it's 2 points of carryover because you're going to put it back in your hand with tier. Tier will double it. So each time they use this order, it's 3 points of carryover. That is why you must kill Drake. Like, you have to kill Drake or force those other things out. You want to force them out anyway, but Drake's Order is 3 points of carryover each time they click it. Just think about that. That's incredible. Plus the thinning. I highly, highly value Drake as one of the best things in Raid Warriors. Just as an enabler for what they do. Next up, we have Iced. Iced is good. I wouldn't say Iced is up in the top tier. Or would I? I personally love Iced with Blaze of Glory. The issue is Blaze of Glory is better without Iced. It's better with like Renfree, which is annoying. We'll talk about Renfree and neutrals. Probably give our own tier like we did last year. But how would I rate Iced? It is a very good effect, right? If you use it, Blaze of Glory, summon back the thing you send. Pretty strong. Gives you a huge tempo swing. But it does mean you have to wait to use your leader until you have the Iced. You can also use it in niche ways, right? So Iced will trigger if you discard. So you can do stuff with Ice that's pretty fun, like set up a Coral. You can set up, funnily enough, you can play Renfree and create the Skellige stratagem and discard that way for Iced. I have seen that done. I don't know why, but it has been done. You can do the same thing with Redea's, get copy of your stratagem, play Iced and discard. Fun things you can do. Fun things you can do, because for Iced, for those of you who don't know, the devotion effect. The devotion effect is sent to the graveyard during your turn. It always does discard. You can always just set up the discard. You don't have to be in devotion for that, which is fun. But I think I'll rate it in good. It's a very strong effect. The problem with Ice is it's just not the best thing to play with Blaze of Glory. You'd rather do something else most of the time. But it's a good card. Yeah, I'll say it's a good card. Pirate Scenario. Endless Voyage is pretty strong. We're going to rate all these cards in a vacuum, so we're ignoring the fact you primarily make this with Magic Compass to save some provisions. We'll get the Magic Compass when we get there. There seems to always be one card in each faction. It just makes talking about other cards a pain, because you have to like exclude it, but we'll get there. We'll get the Compass eventually. We'll get there. So, the Pirate Scenario, it is good. If you the Drakkar. The Drakkar is a very strong effect. It infuses to double damage. If the opponent doesn't kill it, it'll get the second order on the second chapter. And just infusing for double damage just means you can kill anything you want most of the time. Either with a order, like a couple leader charges, a Bjorn Clash, just a raid. Like dealing double damage also just means your pings on board, like your On-Crate Raiders, will just start killing stuff. Very good effect. And then the infuse with the Cataclysm infusion, where they die and spawn Cataclysm, is really nice. And then the second one, you get the Drakkar and Purify it, either gets a, which also means they can't lock the Drakkar. They have to kill it. If you don't have it, you get another one, so they have to kill another one. Usually you can play a lot of value around this thing. I think it's very good. I think it's very, very good. I used to not rate this that highly. I used to not play in Pirates, and I was wrong. It's very good. How do we feel about Ermion? Tutoring and Alchemy. So this is good specifically in Druids. Other decks don't really want the Alchemies most of the time. Some Golden Necker decks do. But that's pretty much it. Searching for an Alchemy is not as impactful as some other things. So like, in Northern Realm, searching for a Warfare is incredibly good because some very impactful Warfares you can get, like Amphibious Assault. And Squirtle, searching for Natures, it can give you like your tutors. It can give you big plays like Water. Searching for an Alchemy isn't. It's usually not that great, to be honest. The only thing you really want to find with this is often you're looking for Ale the Ancestors. And that is impactful for Druids. Is impactful. I mean, would I really rate this that highly, though? I think we'll go here. I can see Ermion being up here if you really like Druids and such, but how do I rank this? I really value thinning and tutoring and consistency. You know, it is going to go up here. You really have to find that Ale the Ancestors for Druids. This is the way you do it. Yeah, I like this. Plus, I can't really discount the fact you're always going to find your Singerfish right with this if you need to. Yeah, we'll put that up there. We might move Burn on Coral up later. We'll see. Or this might come down. Fuchsia. Yep. Uh, Fuchsia may be the best card in Skellige. It might be. There's a couple that are going to argue with this later we'll get to, but Fuchsia is fantastic. Replaying any 10 provision or less card is great. And the best thing about it is if you play a low provision card, you get that rain, which means you're getting value for the provisions you didn't bring back, which means you bring back like a 4, that 6 turns of rain will make up the value. And this just lets you replay golds. That's incredible. You can do really funny stuff with this, like replaying Combi. You can do actually good stuff like this with this, like replaying your Highland Warlords, replaying Messengers from the Sea, replaying Melusine. So many things you can do with Fuchsia, so many decks enabled by her, and overall, incredible card. Probably the first card you craft when you go play Skellige. Volmar. Oh boy. Volmar's an okay card. Volmar is there to enable all-in rain combo. The thing is, all-in rain combo is really bad. It's really bad, because it loses to like one squirrel, which is something of an issue if your deck loses to a squirrel. But overall, he plays Tears of the Siren, which is one of the worst alchemies of the game, but he gives you a free one, so that's not that bad. You get 2 turns of rain and a Siren, which is fine. The problem with this is you want the effect to transform rain to storm. If I want to turn rain to storm, I'm going to just play Kraken, and it's much better. So we're going to play him in okay. People might think of him as weak. I think he's okay, just suboptimal. The problem is his deck is just terrible. All in rain is not good. All in rain's not good. You know what? I accidentally dropped him down here. I didn't mean to, but does this fit? Is this the right tier? You know what? We'll put him there for now. I like that. My inability to hold down my mouse button for long enough to maybe put him in there. I like that spot. Gettys's Shadow. All scenarios typically are very strong. I think Shadow deserves to be up here because it has such a good synergy with the Druid deck. So you play this, you get an extra copy of your Crow Clan Preacher, which is the best bronze for your deck, and then it just triggers all your Crow Clan Preachers when you're playing more of them, which is extremely good. Yeah, simple, straightforward, incredibly powerful card. Gerd. Gerd's weak, I think. Gerd's a very interestingly designed card, where the Adrenaline means you stop doing row damage, because you play him, he spawns a Siren, does 1 damage everything on the Siren's row. So on the face of it, he's playing 7 for 7, so you give your opponent 1 point. But if the opponent has like 4 or 5 units on the row, then you're starting to get value. Problem is, that's not the wide payoff you want. You want wide payoff to be more punishing than just 1 damage to everything. So you really have to have a use for the damaged enemy units. So the only time you ever really see this is in Sihil decks, for you they might want another 1 power Siren to kill it with the Sihil if they need setup. But there's better ways to do it, so I just think that Gerd just doesn't quite cut it. Giant Boar. Seen a little bit of Giant Boar recently, actually. A little bit of Giant Boar. So he gets +1. Actually, it's +2, right? +2 for each damaged unit. Oh, it's 1, I think. Yeah, it's 1 for each damaged unit. And then the ranged ones boost self by the amount a unit is damaged. Surprisingly, this effect can be surprisingly useful if you're playing Patricidal Fury. But overall, Boar, I've seen it a bit. I don't think it's great. There's better payoffs to 1 damaged units. For example, if we take a look here, the reason I don't rate Boar that highly, melee boost self by 1 for each damaged unit. Boost self by 1 for each damage allied unit. Adrenaline 3, boost 1 for each damaged unit instead. You're going to wait to the end of the round to play this anyway, because you want more time for more damaged units. You just play Bear Witcher Mentor. So I think Giant Boar is unfortunately going to just be in weak, because Mentor I think is just better. Yes, you need the Adrenaline, but I mean, you're going to wait for the Adrenaline anyway. And the upside of the back of the Range Row effect, usually it's not that good. I did mention it can be surprisingly good with Patricidal Fury, if that leader ends up taking a bunch of damage, but that's hard to do. I think this is overall weak, though. The only time you really see it is because it's a beast. Like, sometimes you want the fact that it's a beast in your deck with rain and such, but I don't think it's the best choice. I think this card's not that great. Decoction, though, is pretty good. It is a 6 for 6 removal that is very unique in that you can either do 1 damage 6 times or 6 random damage. So 6 random damage lets you, for example, kill two threes in a row, and then 1 damage 6 times lets you kill something with a shield. For example, like a Hefty Helga, it's 4 with a shield. You can kill it with this. Overall, very good removal card. It is 6 provisions, but it's one of the better 6 provision damage cards, I think, and very useful. Just solid card, I think. Same deal for Grimace. Grimace is also just a good card. It's your in-faction Purify, but at 6 for 6, that is expensive. However, it does reset. You can use it multiple times, which is often useful for the decks playing alchemies because you can remove Doomed from stuff. But yeah, it's just very... I think this is a good card. Grimace is pretty good. Mainly used in Druids, but in Druids, the big thing you can do is keep removing poison from stuff, which is one of the biggest problems for your deck is poison. So he addresses that pretty well. Aaron Kaduk. Where do we put this? The primary target for Golden Necker decks in the faction. Very good for Witcher decks. Witcher decks are very good and very popular. Has resilience for the heal, which is okay. Has some heal synergies. I think good is a good spot for this card. Spawning the 3 different Bear Witchers has some very good upsides in that you can actually find Mentor at the end of a round sometimes and just play this for like 17 points. Very high upside that you can actually make the Mentor. Most of the time, Quartermaster is where you're at, or Bear Witcher himself, depending on the board state. Bear Witcher usually is more if you have Adrenaline. If you have Self Wound set up, you might want to prefer the Quartermaster. Those choices are both very good, and then you've got the upside of having the Mentor when you need a really big card. So, very good options. You're never going to pick Adept, but as far as what it makes for one of the Witcher locations, I think it has the best selection of cards. So, I think it's very good. Hammond is movement with bleeding, extra bleeding for each pirate next to him. The thing with Hammond is we've mentioned a few times, Skellige does not lack for damage, and you'd rather kill the unit than move the unit most of the time, and the bleeding takes time for the value to take effect. I think Hammond's has been buffed several times. I think it's still, unfortunately, just going to be weak. It is 7 for 7 now, right? I have the correct image. I just want to check, because it's going to change several times. Yes, we have the right one. Perfect. I think it's weak still. Yeah. Herald on crate. Herald the cripple, I should say. Can't just throw things around like that. Anyway, Herald, super strong. Works fantastically in Raid Warriors to bring back your Highland Warlord. Works great in other warrior decks without raids, just as a way to ping, say, Lula Warriors. That pings are pretty useful. But I don't think he's the best. Like, I think Fukusha is better than him, despite being more expensive. I still think it's really good, though. If you're playing in like a non-raid deck, you bring back Greatsword. That's a good one to bring back. Then the Ping will start healing the Greatsword. What do I want to say about Herald? Form 2 Herald without the Devotion is often not that bad either if you're forced to play him early, but you really want that Form 3 for the extra pings. Tough choice here. Fantastic synergies with Tyr. I think we'll go with him. I think we'll leave him here. I think he's at the bottom of the top tier, but I think he's in the top tier. Next up. Oh, here's a fun one. Now, this card it's an interesting one. So, we spawn the 3 skulls. Spawn the 3 skulls for Herald. And the skulls here, I'll just pull them up. They do Death Wish, deal 2 damage. So, on paper, you get 7 points with this guy. And then you can do 6 damage by taking 3 of your own. If the 6 damage goes through, he's 10 for 7. Now, what Herald's really good at is setting up the order to do self-damage without having these leader charges. Herald is best. There's only one interaction that really wants you to play Herald, which we'll mention here. You pretty much have to combine Herald with Offering to the Sea, because the Offering to the Sea doubles up. It hits the skulls, which gives you extra points on the Siren while still triggering them, so you don't lose the skull points. So you're always trying to line these two up together if you're playing them. And I think that puts him as a pretty good combo, actually. It's actually a pretty good tempo combo. Very good in specifically Golden Necker Self-Wound, which, as we mentioned, I'm extremely biased towards. I think we'll give Herald here. I think Herald's good. The effect of the self-damage engine is nice. Opponents will often feel they have to kill him, which they don't, but usually they do. I will say that I could understand him being down here, but if you haven't played Golden Necker Self-Wound, he's a very, very good card in that deck specifically. So I'll give him this ranking. Hemdall, I would say Hemdall at 9. At 9, this guy was originally 12, wasn't he? Yeah, 12. 1 damage to each unit, not to each unit, 1 damage randomly for each unit in a row. Works incredibly well with Alula. Works well in Golden Necker. Works well with Dagger. Has some very good synergies. And often if they've got 5 or 6 units, you're getting 14 value, 13 value. Usually he gets value nowadays that he's this cheap. The floor has been lowered enough because he only costs 9 that often he will get value. I don't think he's the best choice unless you're playing like a Dagger deck, but he's still a pretty decent option to consider. Hershka. I guess we should mention Alula. Where's Alula? Can't really talk about these two. There she is. So, Alula we have to mention here because Alula has the effect where each time your warriors do damage, she does another damage. Now, that works obviously super well with things that do a bunch of pings. So like Hemdall, for example. Hershka does 1 damage at the end of each turn, or you click her order to do 3, and then the Alula doubles up on that. So we're going to put Alula in excellent. Alula is a fantastic card. She's a cornerstone of Self-Wound Golden Necker Warriors. She's a cornerstone of Rent-Free Warriors. She's a cornerstone of a lot of decks, non-raid warriors, and it's just an incredibly good effect. So she's going to go up here. And even if she doesn't get her effect, she's 7, and the order does 2 damage, and then she does a third one. So she's going to have an order for 10. If you only have to synergize her with 1 card, that's usually enough to make her get really good value. But as far as Hershka is good. Hershka is carried by Alula, but it's not bad on its own. 1 ping at each turn is okay. It's an okay effect. The 3 random damage isn't as good as 3 targeted damage, but it does combine better with Alula. So you've got some stuff there. Veil's nice. She's in good just because you want to play these two together because they have really good synergies. And doing ping damage is useful to get Bloodthirst and lower units' powers and stuff. But really, she's in good because you combo with her Alula, which I'm definitely putting up here. Huel, I think this is. She's one to spawn with 5 bronze humans in your graveyard. It is humans, right? Hewlin, rather. I shouldn't say Huel. Hewlin. Yeah, 5 bronze humans. It is humans. And then she's deploy boost all humans by 1. Surprisingly, that effect to deploy will often get you a decent amount of points if you play a deck with a lot of humans like warriors, where pretty much everything's a human. And the thing where you spawn with things in your graveyard is nice for setting up early Freya's blessings. However, usually you just don't need her. And usually you're just better off with something else. I think she's still a bit expensive for what she does. Yeah, I think we'll go still a bit expensive. I'll put her in weak still. I don't think she's quite this bad, but I think she is weak. Because there's not really a deck that wants the humans in the graveyard that much. Unless you're playing Otkel Blessings, the opponent has like a Xavier or something. But and the deploy is not that bad. The problem is you're usually gonna not need her. Usually have something else that gets more value than her. I think she's too expensive. I'm going to do it. We'll put her in bad. I'm trying to be nice. We won't be nice to her. Sorry, Hewlin. Very interesting card. Corrupted, or not corrupted, regular Flaminica is good. It's good. Healing everything in the row usually means the turn you play it in your Self-Wound deck, or Golden Neck or Self-Wound more specifically. Well, and ideally, if you're not in Golden Neck or Self-Wound, a Queen's Guard deck, where you're spawning a bunch of cards by damaging things, she usually gets like 3 or 4 points of heal the turn you play her, which is really good. So she's one of those engines. It is a heal engine, which isn't the best type of engine, but she usually comes down with quite a few points in the first turn you play her. So I think she's a good card. Seawolf. Seawolf's 14, isn't he? Am I mad? No, that's right. It got buffed from 14 to 13. Okay, no, this is right. Seawolf is incredible. So it has Clash. It's targeted Clash for 10, which will pretty much just kill what you want. And then when you play a raid, he turns the armor. Take a look here. He transforms the armor from himself and adjacent pirates and ships into points. What does pirates struggle with? Well, when the opponent doesn't have that many units, they have trouble generating their own points. What does Yalmar do? Gives you a way to generate a heck of a lot of points. So he's very good. And the fact that you have to 2-for-1 him often, if they play Yalmar, it kills something. If they spend another card to kill the Yalmar, it means he's usually getting 2-for-1 value in card advantage, which is huge in Gwent. So I think he's an excellent card. And so is regular Yalmar. Regular Yalmar, I do rank up this highly. Would I just go with good? You know what? I think I'm going to go with good. Very good, though. Banish a card to deal damage. This works best with Blaze of Glory, where you're always going to send a high power unit anyway. Then you can banish it again with Yalmar. Very good removal, specifically for Renfree decks that just want a second big removal. You just fire off Yalmar. Round 3, you can banish a 12 power unit, 13 power unit or something with Yalmar, and boom. If you're not playing Renfree, that is, with a Great Sword or something. That's just really good value if they go tall. Fantastic card. Black Hand. We'll go with okay on the Black Hand. Not the best of the pirate cards, but does do pings and such. Does do 2 on deploy. And then it does pings and points, whether you're playing a pirate or a ship. Bit random. Not the most value, but it's not a bad card because those decks do want more ping damage. If you can get more Bloodthirst that way. But usually you play something else over him. Heim. Heim. The days of Heim Olaf are long gone, although you could still do it if you want to. The problem for Heim is it's hard to have a damaged, high-power unit to swap with that's good value. The only things that really come to mind are Olaf, which is the best target, and sometimes Champion of Svalbard. That being said, if you have ways to heal, I mean, you can also, shout out guys to the card I don't think people know exists, you can do this on Olgierd, the heal version as well, and then heal the Olgierd. We've used that card, I think, more than anyone else in Gwent. We've used that card quite a bit. I don't think anyone else really does. But yeah, you can Heim him. I've done it. It's fun. When you miss Olaf, you can do that. Not the best deck, though. I would say overall, Heim is just... doesn't really have the targets at once. I think Heim's still weak. I think if it's 5, maybe then you can consider using it on a bronze or something. Right? Maybe then you don't have to hit such a high value target. But with him at 6, you need him to hit something really high value. And those targets are few and far between. And if you're not hitting a high value target, yes, you can hit an enemy unit with Heim, which is really funny, but it has to be good value, right? So if Heim hits a 6 for the opponent, well, say they have a 6, you ping it to 5, and you hit it with Heim. Heim's only playing for 9. So I think Heim, if it was 5 provisions, maybe would actually be a decent card just to hit opponent's units with. I think it's weak right now. Maybe it's just underutilized. Like, imagine you Heim like a King Trum or something. The potential's there. It's just, you want to have a consistent way to get value from it in your deck. Maybe Heim at 5 is overpowered, but I don't think it's good enough right now. Maybe it's just underutilized, but it's underutilized for a reason. All right, let's grab Junod. Oh, Junod. Putting him a weak too. Junod destroys a damaged unit. Very good synergies with Reckless Flurry. The issue is that the decks that would play Junod, specifically Witchers, have no need of an extra tall punish. Because they already have Eskel, they already have Geralt, and they already have Geralt Professional, they already have Heatwave. Usually it's Professional, Eskel, and Heatwave. But there's so much tall removal in it already, they don't need this. And it's expensive. 9 to destroy a damaged unit. Often you have to set up the damaged unit with a Reckless Flurry leader charge. That's very costly. So I don't think he's good enough. I think he's just too expensive. Yutta. Okay. The problem with Yutta is Greatsword's often just a better choice. It depends. If you're playing a King Brand deck, Greatsword's better. If you're not, you could consider Yutta. Only really used for Blaze of Glory to have a really big card to send, which she does pretty well. But, yeah. She's okay. I think Greatsword's a better choice, though. Cartrolde is going up here. Cartrolde is super good. You spawn the on-crate pirate. Well, on-crate unit, I should say. You can get, like, ships. And those are usually pretty good. The pool of on-crate cards is pretty good. If we take a look here, I should show it here on Cartrolde. Does not. I think it shows it in-game, maybe. Anyway, the bronze on-crate units are pretty good. We could probably just do it this way, actually. Right, these are all pretty good. Greatsword's pretty good. Longship's good. Raider's good. This is good. This is alright. This is alright. This one you probably don't pick. But you get one of those. Usually you get a pretty good option. And then it has the give 6 armor and clash. Best target for that's Draco Turtle. Use that on Draco Turtle. You're looking at like, well, you get 6 armor. You hit like a 10 power unit. You kill the unit. Well, you don't kill the unit unless you already boosted Draco Turtle. But you take 10, you get 10 points back, 15. It's like 15 value order. It's a very good order. Cartrolde is super good. Carryover order lets you remove 2 things in one turn. Lets you double up by killing an opponent's engine while playing your own. Lets you do a tall punish with a clash, or like a Sigvald or something. Just incredibly flexible and good effect. Combi. Now, guys. Combi I don't think is a meme card. It does make good memes, though. I don't think it's bad enough to be a meme card, though. So the thing with Combi is obviously, for those of you who don't know, if you play Combi, well, you each have 1 card left other than your Combi. So you have Combi, another card, they have a card. You play Combi, you both discard, the opponent doesn't have a card, the game ends. It just ends at the end of the turn. The opponent doesn't get a turn. They can't use leader charges, they can't use orders, they can't use anything. You can discard their finisher. It's actually really devastating. It's one of the reasons Compass... I had tried to avoid saying Compass. Combi you have to consider with Compass. Compass being able to make Combi means the opponent cannot sit there at 5 or less points ahead of you and not use their leader or finisher if they have 1 card left. They cannot save it if you're playing Compass because you will win by making Compass Combi. That being said, how do we rate Combi on its own? As in you're putting it in your deck. We're going to ignore the fact that its existence makes your opponent play differently with Compass. Just the fact that you play it in your deck, you must get value from it. So you must discard a good card. Often, you can force it to discard a good card by playing it near the end of a round, like around 1 or 2. You can often sneak around 1 or 2 win with this by your opponent saving up a card that would like get them a bunch of value on having a bunch of units out. Like say, just like, not they're going to have this card, but something like Yennefer, where they get a bunch of boosts on everything on the row. It's like Triss Meteor Shower. They get a whole bunch of boosts. You can often hit something like that with Combi. More often than you would think. But I still don't think it's that great to put in your deck. So we're going to give it a niche. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. You can force it to discard one of your discard fodders as well. The things you want to normally discard with these. And then hit high value opponent's unit. I think Combi's a bit niche though. Yeah, we'll go with that. Not so for Kelpie, though. Kelpie's a fantastic engine. You get rain for each 3 beasts in your deck, including itself. It's the beast in your deck builder. Often, you make a deck where this gets 5, 6, 7 turns of rain. Those are usually the run-free decks, the 7, 6 turns. But you can get 4. 4 or 5 is pretty reasonable in a rain beast deck. And 4 turns of rain, even just 4, I think is plenty worth it. Then each time your rain does damage, you boost an unboosted beast. Other than itself, you'll have beasts in these decks because you're going to play Corrupted Flaminica and a bunch of beasts to enable the Kelpie in the first place. And then you just boost them. It gives you a lot of engine value that way, in addition to the rain. So, excellent engine. Very impactful card. King Bran. King Bran I'm putting up here too. King Bran triggers a veteran of all your cards. Now, I've had people talk about King Bran before, and they don't like him. Let's talk about King Bran for a second. Let's just evaluate the King Bran in a vacuum. If we go to veteran cards, often you're going to play 2 of this, 2 of this, 2 of this, him, and that's usually going to be it, I think. You're usually going to play those. So 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these. And the King Bran himself, which is veteran. He does trigger his own veteran. At the start of the game, you're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points of carryover. You will probably play all these cards because you're playing a Raid Warrior deck that will cycle them. That is 7 points of carryover. And by the time you play him, he will usually be at 8 points because of the veteran. So 8 points. One of those will not count as carryover. So we'll say he's 8. Then you have 2, 4, 6 points of carryover on different cards. That's 14. That doesn't sound incredible, but you're doubling up on these boosts with things like your War of Clans. You're doubling up on them with your Fuchsia. You're doubling up on them with your Herald. You're doubling up on them with your Tier. So the points really do matter here. And he spreads them out instead of going tall. Plus, that's excluding completely his deploy, where you boost himself by 1 for each excess damage you dealt. In Raid Warriors, you will be doing a lot of excess damage. So he'll boost himself a good amount. Usually 5 or 6 boost is pretty typical here. So he's going to play for 12 plus the carryover effects. I think King Bran is very strong. If you're not playing a Raid Warrior deck, you're probably going to still have this, 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 and this for like an ice deck. Works really well there too, with great swords. If you're playing Blaze of Glory with ice, right? That's 1, 2, 3. Probably have this guy 4, himself 5, probably these 6, 7. Probably still have these, to be honest. So I think King Bran's super good. Dude, the Callus is going up here too. Such a good enabler for self-wound and a flexible control tool. You damage unit by half its power. This rounds up. Damage enemy by the same amount. Enables self-wound very well. It can kill opponent's stuff. And then if he's at 5 or less power, his veteran, or not his veteran, his berserk will let him do it again next turn. Reset his order. Yeah, he's just basically just the best enabler for self-wound while being a removal engine. I say engine because you're usually getting value each time you use the order on your own cards instead of just pure removal, which is why it's so effective. Kraken, joining this tier. Kraken's the ultimate mid-range card, kind of like Triss Meteor Shower. Same provisions now, aren't they? Same power too. What a coincidence. So you play Kraken, you grab 3 opponents' units, drag them to the row that has more units in it, and then you put Storm on it. So it plays for 3 to the opponent, and then they take 3 total. Because you're giving them 3, they're taking 6. It's 3 total tempo. And then they have Storm on a row. Now, you can often set this up, pretty much always you can set this up to have 6 or 7 units on a row when you do this. Because you grab 3 things, pull them to the row with Storm. If they split up evenly, they have 3 in each row, which they'll probably try to do against your Rain and Storm. And otherwise, they're going to have everything in the same row anyway, so you Storm like a huge row. And then the Storm over 3 turns, if they have 6 units, will do 18 damage. That 18 plus 3 is 21. The Kraken comes back to you, probably boosts himself by 4 or 5 points. That's like 30 points of value. This is why Kraken's such a good card. It usually will play for about 30 and just seal around for you. Kraken's devastating. Also, one of the coolest design cards in the game. The giant monster grabs the opponent's stuff and drags it into the storm where the storm kills it. phenomenal design. Love it. Incredibly good card, too. Lippy has to go up here. Lippy enables so much. Swapping your deck and graveyard lets you replay all those gold cards you played round 1, lets you replay your Shoop State Off, lets you replay your Constructs, lets you replay your Ceres. So many incredibly good things can come from Lippy, especially if you manage to stick a Funeral Boat or something first, so you get extra value. Reset your Roach Knickers for more tempo, resets your Morkvarg if you didn't use it yet, it comes out of the graveyard. Usually going to play this, you're going to pull out Roach, you're going to bring back the Morkvarg, play for like a decent amount, that's like 12 tempo the turn you play this, probably Knickers too, that's 15. And then you also have all your golds back in deck. Just replaying your golds is more provisions. You're getting more provisions than your opponent that you get to play that game, which is usually enough to win if they get to go to round 3 and play their golds again. Madman Lugos, I would say he's alright. Not the best choice, but a choice. Probably best using Golden Necker Patricidal Fury, which is not that common, because you don't have a bigger payoff card to use with him, like a Sove. But I still think it's a pretty okay card. It does 2 damage for each damage unit, so Patricidal Fury is a natural pairing because it guarantees you to put up 4 damage units, so you can always hit for 8. 8 damage is very good. The problem is you have to commit your leader to do it. And if you're not committing your leader to do it, it's a bit hard to get the value. So that's why I'm putting him in okay. I think specifically with Patricidal Fury, you can consider him if you don't have provisions for Sove, or you want to play like a Golden Necker Fury deck. But I don't think he's quite up there with the best cards. That being said, I'm pretty sure he's 5 power now. Yeah, he is 5 power now. So, I don't think I have that picture in here. This thing still applies. The same analysis still applies. He has the same reasons why he's not played that much. But let's see. It looks like I don't have him in here. Well, guys, give me a second to fix that. There we go. Fixed it. Madman Lugos at 5 should be correct. Like I said, the same analysis applies. The biggest issue with Madman Lugos is even if his value is pretty good, you have to use your leader most of the time to set him up. And usually there's better things to set up than a Madman Lugos. But he's not terrible. Okay. When I said Fukusha might have some competition for the best card in the faction, as we try and straighten up this tier list, Compass was the card we're talking about. So Magic Compass. Hilarious card. You guys know this card. Remember this card came out at 9 provisions? You could Golden Necker Magic Compass, and you just make any gold in the entire faction. All the ones you couldn't fit in your deck. Anyway, so you look at 3 cards, and top 3 cards of your deck, play one with the rest of your graveyard. It's like a bad War Council. And then, if there's 3 or less cards in your deck, though, this is where it gets good. Spawn and play a legendary from your faction that was not in your starting deck. You can't duplicate faction golds you didn't have. You can't duplicate golds you did have to play multiples of them, but you can get provision discounts on stuff. So you can play like your Fukusha for 12 instead of 14. Same thing with your Pirate scenario. Same thing with your Care Troll Day if you want to. Usually it's going to be something like Fukusha, or like a Lippy, or something we'll get to later called Otkel. But Compass specifically is not limited to Skellige. If you play Renfrey, you can create from the entire neutral pool, which is hilarious, and the only Renfrey deck I like playing, because it's so much fun just to try and get people with a Regis Higher Vampire and stuff from neutrals. That deck's fun. But anyway, Compass gives you both flexibility and power at a cheaper cost, which is why it's so incredible. Normally, flexibility comes with a higher provision cost. Compass gives it to you usually at equal or lower. Does that make it broken? Maybe. But you have to set up your deck to do it. That being said, that's not hard. You have to discard options like these guys we mentioned earlier. You can thin out your deck. It does thin itself with round 2, although often you do not want to play your Compass round 2 because the opponent will squirrel it, and then it's really bad. That being said, just because it can be squirreled doesn't mean I'm rank the card low, as we've mentioned in some other tier list comments before. But it is very, very strong, and you can make decks that play this card round 2 and 3 for the create effect. So I think Compass, one of the best cards in this faction. Melusine is very good. So Melusine damages the adjacent units and boosts her own base power. Since it's base power, she makes herself into a very good finisher later in the game. You bring her back with Cinderfizz right, bring her back with the Fuchsia, and she's really big, and you're really happy. In Rain decks, you love her because she spawns Rain each turn. If you have a Cultist next to her, she resets her order to spawn the Rain, which is why you can do that. And just gives you a whole bunch of value. And just really good self-wound synergies, really good Rain synergies, really good finisher. One of the main reasons you play a Defender is you can set this up with stuff and just get her boosting. Overall, very good card. Morkvarg. Ooh, hard one to rate here. So as a discard fodder, obviously works great with these two. Works really well with Blaze of Glory, because you can send Blaze of Glory, send Morkvarg, he comes back for tempo. Often that was what's done in Renfree. Renfree will send this most of the time and bring it back, because it'll be boosted to 7 from an Iris. But yeah, very good card. We mentioned Lippy interaction already. I will just mention here, I've said this before, I did a whole video on this. If you place Morkvarg in the graveyard from your hand by selecting it and dragging it to the graveyard, it will not come back because that is not how the game works. If you manually place a card in the graveyard, it's a game mechanic. It's not the card doing anything. It's just in the graveyard. So that is a fun fact for you guys. If you put a card in the graveyard, that's where it goes. This won't come back. That being said, you wouldn't really do that. The only time I've seen this matter, this is a fun anecdote for you, is my opponent once disconnected for a turn, and this was the card that randomly got sent at the end of turn for them being disconnected, and it didn't come back, and then they were very confused when they reconnected to the game. But I think Morkvarg is a good card. Heart of Terror, also a good card. At 9, it gives you a tall punish within Golden Necker range, which is very valuable. Excellent synergies with Dagger, excellent synergies with Pirates, because the armor can be used on him, and the Pirates will like to have him in their deck just because he is a pirate. He synergizes well there. You play him, tall punish down the opponent's card, put your Seawolf next to him, you're happy. Overall, just a good card. Naval Supremacy, ooh, the ultimate pirate enabler. So Naval Supremacy here creates and plays a bronze Skellige ship. Now, the Skellige ships, we go by tags here. There are not that many. Guess we should reset this first. There are actually non-Skellige ships, funnily enough. Northern Realms has a few. So does Nilfgaard. But we go to Skellige and go to bronze. 6 options. You will often see a good choice because Ankh-Knight Longship is almost always the best. Then D-Moon is pretty good and Freenorbo is pretty good. These are the ones you want to find. Usually get one that's pretty decent. And then the next 13 units you play, well, that's actually not necessarily true. You deal a damage to the next so many units that are played until it runs out of charges or counters. Now, you can make the damage faster because actually, funnily enough, if we take a look here, Naval Supremacy is a raid, so you can enhance the damage with Highland Warlord, because this is a raid. After 13 damage has been dealt, that means that if you Highland Warlord this to do 2 damage per ping, or 3 or 4 or 5, it'll do, this will just go way faster. So if you Highland Warlord, the raid damage on this goes up, but it goes away faster. So you don't want to do that, but it's a funny interaction. Sometimes happens if you're playing the Pharaoh Bond and create the Wolf, and then you decide you want a Highland Warlord to speed up your Naval Supremacy. Only time you really see it happen, but it does actually work that way. Makes it do more damage, but less turns. That being said, you don't want that. You want this out for the 13 turns because you want your next opponent's 7 units to take a damage and give you armor and all the things in your hand. Fantastic enabler for pirates. It just gives you that armor. Just gives you the armor most of the time, which is really good. Really good. And if you have this and some Ankh-Knight Longships out, your opponent's taking a lot of damage on each card they play, which makes them pretty easy to kill. So I think I'll put it in here, but it's a fantastic setup card for the deck. Offer we mentioned earlier, only played with Herald combo. I'm going to rate it the same. I think it's a good combo, these two. I think Herald's better than Offering. I'll put Offering in okay. I don't want them next to each other. I think Herald is better, just because you can play them without it for the 1 damage. order. He does play for 10 eventually with the skulls, so I think he's better than the offering, but they work best together. You probably won't play them separately. Olaf. I love myself some Olaf. He's a good card. 10 for 9, and then you damage him, and then double up on the damaged amount by boosting him by double the amount he's damaged. That was a terrible sentence. I apologize. We've been recording this for a long time. But yeah, you damage him. The classic combo is you play Olaf. Next turn you play Knut the Callous. Hit the Olaf, deal 5 damage to your opponent unit. Click the Olaf order. Olaf's 15. You did 5 damage. Knut's at 7 or 5, depending if you did him or not. We'll just say he's still at 7 because you didn't use any leader charges on him. Just say you Knut Olaf. The Olaf is now 15. You did 5. That is 20. And this is 7. That is 27 for a 17 provision combo. That's very good. And obviously you can increase the value of Olaf more with things like Totem. The Heim combo is one that used to be a thing, has not been for years, but you can do that way. It just makes Olaf a very good absorber of your self-damage, doubling up on it. Very good card. Otkel, I will put Otkel in the top tier. Otkel replays all the Freya's Blessings you played this game. Now, it is fairly likely you can get 3 if you're playing a Triss Otkel deck. Because Triss, it's Telekinesis, I believe, will create the extra special. Yes, Telekinesis. So she'll create and play a bronze special card from either player's starting deck. You want this to replay Freya's Blessings. You often Rune Mage to make this very likely to see Freya's Blessing. It gives you 3. Then Otkel will play 3 Freya's Blessings. You can get 4 if your Runestone, when you play Rune Mage, you pick the Skellige Runestone and it sees a Freya's Blessing. That's why you always pick Skellige Runestone with Rune Mage in this deck. But just replaying all the alchemies in that deck in particular gives you a huge amount, not alchemies, all the Freya's Blessings, rejects 3 cards. Usually they're D-Moon Smugglers, which duplicate themselves. They work extra well because the Smugglers you played earlier, you'll put 2 Smugglers in your graveyard so you have enough to play and get a whole bunch of points that way. Also fantastic in Druids because replaying 2 Freya's Blessings will often mean you get 2 Crow Clan preachers in the same turn. Also will trigger them. The first one will get triggered. And then the perfect world, you just play Genny the Shadow. Play this. Play the Preachers off of this. Preachers trigger this. You click the leader. It's like 70 points or something ridiculous. Well, that might be a bit over, but it's like 50. Then if you have like a Mushy Truffle or something, it's like 70 points. It's a huge amount of value. So very strong card, I would say. Makes entire decks. And one of the most important cards to bleed out if you know your opponent has it. Raiding Fleet's pretty good. Searching a ship is very good for decks that play ships. Things like Otkel that want just thinning. Things that just want ships like Pirates. Very good thinning card. It has been changed a few times. It was at 6 before, then was at 5. Now it's, I would say, in the good tier, where it's not oppressive, because the 4 bleeding here actually means the value from the card isn't too bad, right? The fact that it's a random ship's a bit annoying, but often you only have 1 or 2 ships, and then you play that ship. So you like only have on-crate longships, for example, or you have on-crate longships and light longships. You play one to get the 4 bleeding, so you thin out the card. You also get the 4 bleeding, which is pretty good value. He's a very good tutor card. Restore. Restore is hard to rate here. No one plays Restore, so I'm going to put it in weak. Restore is kind of like just putting Olaf's order on any card. Best used on Melusine. You heal an allied unit and boost it by the amount it was healed. In a perfect world, you just use this. You like Heim your Melusine, then hit it with Restore the next turn. Now, the thing with Restore is that I think at 4, it might be played. At 5, though, it's what we said with Heim, right? You need the setup. And this needs even more setup than the Heim does, because the cards that are really tall you want to hit with this, the only one that really comes to mind that doesn't have its own effect, like Championess Fallbook can heal itself, the Wildkarl thing, and then Olaf can do itself. This is only really good on Melusine, and the opponent is already trying to kill your Melusine, so you're just making it even bigger. Now, yes, you can do something like Heim a Patricidal Fury Arnulf and then restore it. Yes, you can do that. It's hard to do. This card's very niche. I think if it was 4, it might be more of a tech card, but no one plays Restore. So it's going to go here. Ryogon. Guys, let's be real here. Let's be real. Rain all-in combo is bad. Let's just say it. It's bad. Ryogan is why it works, though. Because you bring them back, and it triggers all the rain and storm on the opponent's board. If you, in the perfect world, give them like 5 storm or 6 storm, and you bring this back, it kills everything on the row, boosts all your messengers of the sea by like 50 points, and you've won by like 200 or 300. It's really nice, really fun. Doesn't work, it loses the squirrel. That being said, I said cards aren't bad because they lose the squirrel, but he makes your deck lose the squirrel, not just him lose value. That being said, he does thin himself out at the start of the game. Round 0 thinning is what I call it at the start of the game. Thinning before you draw your opening hand is good. So we mentioned that with Eudora in the Score I Tell video. But I think Ryogan, he's obviously not going here. He's going a niche, but I was just trolling a little bit there. He's a niche card. Ryogan's goodness depends on how likely you are to be able to combo in the meta. If the meta doesn't stop you from playing a bunch of Messengers of the Sea and Megascopes and going all in on the combo with Fulmar Ryogan, yeah, he's going to do his job really well. But I think overall, Ryogan all in rain, I think niche is the perfect spot for him. Right. Ooh, I highly value this card. I think this is an excellent card. So Cinegraph is right. Brings back, summons back, I should say, any of your units. Now, summoning back doesn't means you don't get deploys, usually a negative, but it's only 8 provisions for a revive. 8 provisions for a revive is incredibly cheap. Often what you want to do is bring back Knut the Callous, or Sigvald, or Draco Turtle, or Defender, or Melusine. Like, those are the main choices. Usually, you try and bring back your Melusine. If you can't bring back the Melusine because it got banished, you bring back your Sigvald or your Knut the Callous. In Self-Wound particularly, you'd prioritize bringing back the Sigvald, but you also have the Melusine option for a big short round play. And just bringing those cards back makes it very threatening, and I think that flexibility and how cheap this is for the revive effect makes it a top tier card. Speaking of Sigvald, he did recently get buffed to 10 for no reason. Pretty sure. There's been so many Sigvalds, I have to make sure I have the right one. Okay, we have the right one. Back in Melusine range, Sigvald is the definition of the answer or lose card type. If you do not kill their Sigvald, you've probably lost. Because they're going to hit it with Knut, they're going to hit it with Mardromes, they're going to hit it with, if they're playing it, Dark Mirror, and they're going to click its order, and they're going to have a 100-point Sigvald or something. It just takes all the self-damage and then turns it into value. And since you can scale the damage, often Knut is the abuser here, where you make the Sigvald a little bit bigger. Like, you hit it with a Mardrome, it doesn't take damage, it's like 14. 15 or so, like, you're going to take a bleeding, so it's like 15, not 16, like 14 or 15. Then Knut's just like, look, I can do 7 damage, you give the 7 more bleeding every turn. And then you click this order eventually when it's like at 100. They don't have to get that much further to be good, though. Just hit this with 2 Mardromes. Then the Mardromes are getting an extra 6 on each one. Then you've got the big order on this guy. And it works incredibly well with all the other self-damage stuff. Totem's just going to keep spamming hits into this. And you can't remove it without either locking or just banishing. And the worst thing about this is you can't really poison it either, because I can just click the order and it purifies itself. So, yeah, excellent card. Okay, the Skjall. Skjall is pretty bad. So 10 for 6 is about in line for what you want. The problem is if he takes 5 damage, he dies. I'll go with weak. He's not bad anymore. He used to be 7. Now he's 6. Still weak. You wouldn't play this guy. The thing is, there's the main use for having a tall unit like this is either to go tempo, which you don't really need here, or to have some kind of synergies with, which you do with Blaze of Glory. But at 6, you're just sending Greatsword, you're just sending Yutta. No reason to play this guy. There is no reason to play this. It will often just die to 5 provision removal from the opponent. It'll just die to ping over time from like engine effects. It's just not worth it. It's too expensive. Skjordal, pretty good in Devotion decks. We'll give him a good here. Pretty good. Especially with Devotion King Bran, he goes up to 7, which is a very high amount of removal. So I think he's a good removal card. Doubles up on the veteran effect. Good value. Yeah, usually playing with, he's always in King Bran decks, but if you're playing King Bran, worth considering if you want to play Squirtle or not. It plays for 14 with 7 removal in round 3, which is pretty darn good. Sove. I still think Sove deserves to be up here. So Sove, always comboed with Patricidal Fury. I was about to say almost always, but I've never seen it outside of that. You play Sove, unless Compass made it randomly, but you play your leader charges, you got 4 damage units on the opponent's board, you play your Sove, you send like a Squirrel or a Savage Bear or something, and then Sove does damage equal to it, equal to the number of damage units they have. 4 happens to be enough to kill a 4 Persian Beast. He gets double the unit's power, and he's immune. So typically you play Sove with the Patricidal Fury leader charge, you get an 18-point immune card. Now, in the perfect world, which is pretty common with this actually, as you have 2 damage units already on the opponent's board, and you send little half through, then you get a 22 immune. That's more common than you'd think. It can happen quite a bit. And then you're getting a 22-point immune card. The fact that he's immune is why Sove is so good, because the opponent just can't interact with you. Plus you have the Arnulf off the same turn, so it's a gigantic tempo swing. And I think Sove just still deserves to be up here. Runestone. I think Runestone's weak. I think all the Runestones are weak, but of the Runestones, the Nilfgaard one and the Skellige one have the most potential. Nilfgaard because of the Assimilate synergies, but Skellige's Runestone is the best. Skellige Runestone, unironically, sometimes sees play in Shoop decks. Because you already have Rune Mage, so you get 5 choices on this, and you're playing a casino deck. Sometimes in a casino deck you see this. It's very, very rare, but sometimes it's actually played. That being said, I don't think it's very good. I think at 4, being an alchemy is a big deal here, because if we take a look, I keep clicking the wrong tab there. Sorry about that. Being an alchemy is actually synergistic for Skellige. I think at 4, this would actually be played in Druids. Like, not really. I think this would be a good card in Druids, like legitimately. Play a Bronze Skellige. It's an alchemy. You just might play that in Druids. I think that might be interesting. So I think this is the most potential for a Runestone to be good. But as is right now, it's weak. Sucrose is going in here. Sucrose is going here. The only real use for Sucrose is with Arnagod combo. You play Sucrose next to Arnagod. The opponent cannot kill the Sucrose in Arnagod. Every card they play gets clashed by 7 and probably dies. That being said, that's hard to set up. Yes, it can prevent self-damage. It doesn't really matter. Self-damage, other than Arnagod's clash, there's better ways to mitigate than playing this guy. But that's his really only combo. Fun fact, this card has never, in all of existence, been played in Syndicate. If one of you say you played this in Syndicate, I legitimately will not believe you. Despite it being a Syndicate card as well. Yeah, it stops insanity, which I think is the idea there. But I don't think it actually stops insanity. To be honest, I don't know this interaction. I don't think you can stop insanity anyway. I don't think there's anything that stops insanity damage. Let's take a look here. Yeah, insanity only works if the unit takes damage. So you can stop the insanity damage, but it won't work. That's what I thought. Well, actually, it's not what I thought. I thought the unit just would still take damage. It just doesn't work, the effect with insanity. So there's really no way to take advantage of this outside of Arnagod. Unless you're really all in on an Artist deck. You can Artist, then your stuff doesn't take damage with this. Although I think you'd have to have them ordered properly. I think you'd have to have this one before this one in the row, so that this passive would go off before this one. Not too sure there. Maybe we'll try the interaction out. But yeah, it's a very niche card. And the other contestant for the best card in Skellige is going to be wow, said 2 wrong there. Is Svalblood. I think Fukusha, Compass, and Svalblood are arguing for the best Skellige card. Svalblood, for some crazy reason, got one of its nerfs reverted this month, which makes no sense to me. This card's completely insane. So you play Svalblood. It is a wide punish. Right, so you play Svalblood, damage all units by 1. Usually, you don't care because your cards get benefits from being damaged, or the opponent has a whole bunch more cards than you, usually both. Then, when you do 8 damage each turn, you get a Svalbard Fanatic. Svalbard Fanatic transforms into a Bear Abomination once it takes 2 damage. When a Bear Abomination enters your side of the battlefield, repeat the deploy. So, what this really happens in practice is you play Svalbard Totem, which is coming up very soon. That gives you 2 Fanatics. You play Svalbard the next turn. It does its 8 damage. You spawn a Fanatic. You use the Totem to turn the Fanatic into a Bear Abomination. Oh look, another Bear Abomination. You trigger the Svalbard again to deal all damage to all units again. That flips the next Svalbard Fanatic into a Bear Abomination and does it again. Then all of a sudden you've done 3 damage to every unit on the board. You click your leader to spawn the self-wound last one. Then you've done 4 damage to everything on the board, and you just keep spawning Fanatics every turn. Svalbard is one of those you will lose the round card most of the time you see a Svalbard, unless you have something set up to answer it. So, incredibly powerful card. Most of the time, you just wins the round you played in. You kind of have to accept that against self-wounds. You must survive the Svalbard round somehow, either by just going way outside of the opponent's tempo, or just not playing that many units or something. Like, it's hard to play around the Svalbard. And the fact that when they damage their own units, most of the time there's synergies is a bit of a problem, because also the things they transform the Fanatics turn to Bear Abominations, which gain power. Yeah, they hit themselves. If you go long enough, Svalbard might start hurting your opponent by killing more of his points than yours, but that doesn't really matter, because most of the time it's about the tempo of the turn he comes down, and then he threatens it the next turn. I think that's fine. Svanrige is 1 tier below Iced. Svanrige is the Ice substitute if you're playing Golden Necker or you're short 4 provisions. That's basically how I view it. You're playing Golden Necker with Blaze of Glory, or you're playing a Blaze of Glory deck and you can't afford the 4 provisions for Ice, you play Svanrige. Because what he does is he boosts himself by the amount of points for the last card sent to the graveyard. You send your big card for Blaze of Glory, you play him out of hand, he gets the big points. Same thing for the Ice will double up on those points as well. So you send a 12 with Ice, you get 12 on board. Send 12, you play this, you get 12 on board. This has the extra effect of the next turn being very good. We didn't really talk about the deploy for Iced as well, but I don't think it changes much. Probably should have mentioned it though. He does deploy Bloodthirst. You can like discard, draw and discard, which will trigger him again, but that's why he's better. Plus, he doesn't go tall. He spread the points across 2 bodies, which is significantly better than the Svanrige. And the fact that he has 2 counters means the opponent will have to deal with the Ice or he'll do it again somehow. So that's why it's better. But if you can't afford it, Svanrige is an alright alternative. Keep doing that. Next up, we have Terror of the Seas. Very good card. Armor payoff for pirates. I think I'm putting it up here in excellent. It's payoff and a finisher, but it does its value in the form of damage, which can be a bit awkward, and you must draw it early. If you don't draw this card early, it's really bad. That being said, usually you're going to play like discards and stuff to get this into your hand, and I think it is worth it. Even if you just draw this in round 2 or like a long round 3, it usually gets enough armor to be a very good card. Because realistically, as long as it's doing like 7 damage, you're pretty happy. In a perfect world, you'd usually prefer the 17 to 20 damage you get if you draw it round 1 and keep it in your hand throughout the game, but maybe 14 to 17 damage is more common than 20, but it usually hits really hard that way. But yeah, I generally think this card is still excellent. Same opinion of Totem. Totem, we mentioned the combo is Svalbard, but on its own, it spawns the 2 Fanatics, and it does 2 damage to your own units each turn. Fantastic self-wound enabler, the best self-wound enabler other than Knut the Callous. And much more consistent than Knut the Callous because it is an artifact. So if you're playing like Queen's Guards or something and want to take 2 damage for their effects, you play this early, and then it's just sitting there to use your damage when you want to. On top of that, the 2 Fanatics transform to Bear Abominations. That's 12 points of value. It's 8 right away, 12 the next turn. Your opponent's playing random damage, the Fanatics threaten to take it. So overall, it's a super strong setup card, good value, good combo potential, Golden Necker range, great Golden Necker artifact. I don't know why I click it each time I say something, but a very good card. I think it deserves to be up here. So much good setup comes out of this. Next up, we have Tirgvi. Tirgvi's okay. Tirgvi, alright, we'll mention it again. Tirkvi is not great to put in your deck, but the fact that Tirkvi exists makes Magic Compass a lot better. Because if your opponent has a very tall card on the field, you always have the choice, assuming you're not playing this last, it's a second to last play, you always have the choice with Compass to either make Tier, base form Tier, which we didn't talk about because we're not at Tier yet, it's the next card. You can make base form Tier and knock down that really tall card by its boost amount, or you can make Tirkvi, and if it's high base power but no boost, put the Rupture on it so it dies. It always gives you an answer to an opponent's tall card if you play the Compass second to last, unless it's veiled and has like 20 base power. So maybe like an Ogroid King Trum or something with a leader charge. But other than that, if it's not veiled, you will have an answer to a very tall card base power wise with Tirkvi or non-base power wise with Tier. That being said, he's not great to put in your deck because the Rupture effect can be purified, and it's one of 2 cards in the game that puts out Rupture. And purifying Rupture means he's just playing for 8 points with the Veteran. And often, you are not playing that many statuses. You're not going to have like a lock in your deck for the opponent to want to purify early in the game, which means if they have a purify, they might use it on the Tirkvi. Now, if you Tirkvi second to last, their last card's probably not a purify, so you can usually get away with that, using this as a pseudo finisher, like a second to last card, but you'd be better off most time running something else instead. But that being said, 8 with the Rupture is actually pretty scary if you can afford the provisions to fit him in the deck. I just don't think it's good enough. I think everything else is better, but this card's not. I don't think it can be down here. You know what? Actually, I'm going to predict something. I predict at some point next year, this card will go to 9 provisions. Gotta give Golden Neck or Skellige more options. It's not like they have enough already. But yeah, I do think I'll put it here. Like I said, everything else is better. It is better, yeah. I'm trying to be upside on this card, but I do think it belongs down here because the cost of playing in your deck is so high. Tier. Did I say there's 3 cards arguing for the best card in Skellige? There's 4. Tier's the 4th one. So, base form Tier is actually really darn good. Not always the case for the evolving cards. Actually, you know what? A surprising amount of the evolving cards do have a really good form one. The Dana has a really good one. And what's it called? Oh, I can't remember its name now. Torres. Dana and Torres have really good form ones too. So Tier form 1, damage unit by its difference between current and base power. Now, for all of you Skellige enjoyers out there, just remember, if the unit has shield, the shield will block the damage. I've seen people just do this and forfeit. So you gotta watch out for that. Oh, we can't see the evolved forms here, can we? That's annoying. Whatever. That's the wrong card. So yeah, the base form is actually pretty good. Plus, if you do damage to kill something, you get resilience. So Tier form 1, 8 points of resilience. It's like a Siri Nova. That being said, you're paying 14 for that Siri Nova. You much rather want this to evolve. Because once it evolves, the first time each turn you add a bronze. The first time each turn you bring back a guy, it gets double power. Or unit leaves the graveyard, I should say. And he puts one of your bronze units from your graveyard back to your hand and discards a card. You can trigger your discard synergies that you haven't used off yet. It will double up on the Drake and stuff we said earlier. And usually this will just put back either a, not either, it'll usually put back a 9 or so power Tier 6 Skirmisher to your hand. And then it's an 18, and you play that, or a Great Sword, which is usually also an 18, actually. Unless you've been getting if your opponent didn't kill Drake, the tier is just going to drop like a 40-point unit on you, let's say, which is really scary. And also, the tier stays, and you have to deal with it. You have to kill the tier. Form 2 tier is 9 power, which means it is in the 9 power removal range. Form 1 tier got nerfed for some reason I don't understand. But Form 2 tier can't be nerfed because of how the Balance Council system works, except by provisions, which is why he's so expensive. Very good card. And you'd have to kill the tier. If you don't kill the tier, they're getting 7 or 8 extra points on each of the cards they play, because they're going to have the Herald, they're going to have the Fukusha, they're going to have War of Clans, and they're getting so many extra points on that, you'll just lose. So you have to kill the tier, and it gives them a giant finisher to play. Super strong. We have the unnerved Tyrk V. Let me fix that. Maybe I'll leave this one not in, not this, edit this one out real quick, because this should be fast. Grab Tyrk V. Guys, don't comment on this. I was trying to figure out how to get rid of a random line that's showing up when I clipped cards. So don't comment on that, please. Very annoying. Something to deal with there. There he is. Oh, 6 is correct. There he is. Grab 5. Remove that. Perfect. And there we are. So we fixed that. Next up, we go to Udalric. 6 for 6. And he's got that Berserk. Another card whose Berserk has been reduced to his own points. Berserk 7. It's an enemy unit's power to match own power. So Albius is always active because he's 7 or less power. And actually, the smaller he is, the somewhat more useful it is because you can swap an opponent's unit. Kind of like it's a discounted Ivar Evil Eye. Everyone knows how broken Ivar Evil Eye is. Specifically when it has 1 for 11. That was nuts. But Ivar just steals rounds by swapping powers. This doesn't quite do that. It sets the opponent's power to match his own. There's only half the effect, which is why it's discount, both in provisions and in effect. But if your opponent's got a really tall card, you can Udalric down it to his value, which is 6. Usually this is not really worth doing. So I'm going to put him in weak. The problem is, if the opponent's a 17-point card, you play Udalric, and whatever you pronounce his name as. You play this, and you knock the opponent's card down. The opponent's card is all of a sudden not... It's down to your value level, right? So it's basically playing for the value of the opponent's big card when you knock it down. That being said, often they don't have a big card for you to hit with this, and it's just a 6 for 6, or like a 7 or 8 for 6. The floor is too low, and the ceiling doesn't come up enough, so I do think that he's weak. And do I want to put him all the way in bad? I kind of do. I want to put him down here too. Let's be real. Those two are probably down here. I like that better. Maybe being cruel to Udalric, but I just think there's way better punishes in Skellige, right? I mean, look at Morkvarg Heart of Terror. It's only 3 provisions more, and it knocks it down till it's damaged. Yeah, it has the same issue sometimes as Udalric. But often a finisher has like 1 base power, like Corrupted Flaminica, where the damage part is much more impactful than this. Ooh, Ulfodin. Ulfodin's pretty alright now, actually. I won't give it good. I say it's okay. At 6 for 9, the Bloodthirst. At 9 provision, you're probably looking for like 13 value. 12, 13, something like that to be happy. And in order for him to get that, he has to have like a 14 power card. That's not that common, but it's often made up for by the Bloodthirst. And one card in particular, Tirsic Bearmaster, got buffed recently. Really fun interactions with this. But overall, I would say this card is not the best. The only time I've really seen this is, other than us playing with Bearmaster, which was really fun, by the way, check that out if you haven't, is with Ren-Free Beasts, because it's another way to have a tall punish that's fairly inexpensive with an upside. But I think it's an alright option to include. Not the best, but okay. Fabiorn is an excellent. Tutoring Warfares, Tutoring Raids is really good. Yeah, tutoring raids is just really good. The raids happen to be very impactful. Often you're going to find Blood Eagle. You're going to find Raiding Fleet, Naval Supremacy for pirates. Just tutoring the raids is really good. It's better than tutoring the alchemies from Ermion. Unless you're in Druids and you want Ale the Ancestors, which maybe you consider Ermion up there. But I think Vagrant's a bit better. I think they're both up here. Vildkarl is okay. Here's the thing. Vildkarl is never bad to hit with a self-wound leader charge. 12 for 7 is good. The issue is, do you want that leader charge for something else? I think I'll put Vildkarl in good. Vildkarl's the bottom of good. Vildkarl's the first card I cut in self-wound. Just because it's good effect, it's a good value, you can bring back the champion for a bunch of points. It's just that there's a lot of better synergies that even though this is a 12 for 7 with you have to put a leader charge into it or a order off of totem, it's not bad by any means. But often you have some other really strong synergy you want that has a higher ceiling than this. But it's really good. But if you're tight on provisions, it's a card you consider cutting. How do we fix this guy? Only 3 cards left here. So, Wild Boar of the Sea. A classic. A classic. Damage all damaged units by 1, then damage all units by 1. Enemy units, I should say. So, say the opponent has 5 damaged units and 3 other units. You play Wild Boar of the Sea. That's 5, then 8 damage. That's 13, that's 19. That seems pretty good. The problem is, it's the same problem all the Bloodthirst like 4 or 5 cards, or even Bloodthirst 3 cards like Ulfwithin have. Getting that much Bloodthirst, this isn't Bloodthirst, but it's the same principle. They need a lot of damage stuff. It's actually somewhat hard. And it's not that consistent. And the problem Wild Boar of the Sea has is it wants to be in a pirate deck. Pirates have a lot of expensive cards they want. They want this, they want this, they want this. Can't really fit it. So for Wild Boar of the Sea, you kind of need to make your own deck based around it. And I don't think it's good enough. I just don't think it's good enough. Yeah, I just think it's good enough is the answer. Joanna. Here's the problem. Joanna is just completely outclassed by Flaminica. So Joanna has a 2 heal order, and then it gets refreshed when you play Warriors, I believe. I've literally never seen this card played. Yeah. Maybe play... Oh, what adjacent unit takes damage, gain a charge. It's just outclassed by Flaminica. And you don't need 2 massive heal cards. You really only need the 1. But yeah, I mean... I don't think there's ever a case you're going to want Joanna over Flaminica. I don't think there will ever be that case, unless something stupid happens like her being 9 base power. Because her effect, will happen right away. At the end of the turn you play her, she'll heal like 4 or 5 points. You have to wait for this, and then it's only 1 charge, and then you have to wait for the adjacent things to take damage. I don't think Joanna will ever be good. I'm putting her in meme tier. The problem with her, like I said, is this effect is much, much better because it happens the turn you play her. You can revive this card, so you don't need a second Joanna. If you want more healing, you just revive this with your Cinderfist Right or something. Maybe there's a deck with Joanna and the guy when you take a damage, adjacent unit takes damage, he boosts himself by 1. But I'm not seeing it. I'm putting her here. Which finally leaves us with Justinia on crate. Good pirate card. Good payoff to having armor. The veteran, she goes up to 7. She has 7 armor. She deals 7 random damage to the opponent. Often you just drop her at the beginning of round 3 and the opponent tries to set up, kills their card, develops your own points. Pretty nice. Overall, just good pirate card. And that is the golds. Are we being mean to Joanna? Yeah, we're being mean to Joanna. Fine. Maybe she's 5 provisions and 7 power or something. I'd consider her. But maybe there might be a deck that would keep Joanna. We'll put her here. I'll do that. Yeah. So that's the golds, I think. Yeah, we'll leave her here. No meme cards, actually. I think all these cards have some potential, other than maybe Joanna and Donar, which we'll see. We'll leave them here. I think there's some potential, maybe for Joanna. As I think about it, there might be a deck that actually does want a whole bunch of healing, maybe with some stuff. But we'll go on to the bronzes in a second once I get some water. On to the Skellige bronzes. We're going to have some really good stuff in here. Let's begin with a boardage. You know, let's just start with the top tier card, because why not? A boardage does 2 damage, then the Bloodthirst will cycle a card. Well, not cycle a card. It plays a pirate out of your hand, then you draw a card, which is cycling a card. The reason this is so good is because the Bloodthirst checks after the boardage does damage. like all the Bloodthirst cards do. So it does the 2 damage, then checks for Bloodthirst. So if there's 1 damaged enemy unit, which, hey, Patricidal Fury would do that for you. So we'll just 1 order onto like a Raider. Then you play this, hit something else for 2 damage. Oh, look, Bloodthirst, cycle a card. Consistency and thinning is incredibly strong in this game. And this will do it with tempo. This gets empowered by your Raid Warriors from Highland Warlord, which makes this do more damage. Really good in Pirates, really good in Warriors, really good in any deck that wants to cycle, like Otkel. Just overall phenomenal card. This Marauder is pretty alright. Here's a consideration here. One thing I'll note here for OK tier, as I try and mention this a lot, OK bronzes, sometimes these are cards you put a 1 of in, like 1 of in your deck. Sometimes they're not that premium choice, but the OK bronzes sometimes are pretty close to the good bronzes, like really close in value. Because bronzes have to be very tight. Like a lot of bronzes are like 1 point off being from tier to tier, just because of how they are function. Niche. Armorsmith's niche. If you're playing the all-in armor scam deck, I'm calling it scam deck, with Tainted Ale, yeah, you have to have this card, and it plays for 200 points, or however many interactions you got off of your Tainted Ale last turn. Yeah, but that deck's just decided by whether or not the opponent can kill the Tainted Ale. More so, or the Scion or whatever. Thankfully, I don't see that deck. I see that deck like every other month, once every other month. But I'm aware that a lot of people play this at lower ranks or something. I apologize for that. The deck's not good. It's inconsistent and incredibly expensive and all in. That doesn't make it good, but it does probably abuse new players, and I'm sorry about that. But yeah, this card's the definition of niche. Next up, we have Armorsmith. Used to be an okay card. Now it's a bit weak, though. I think Armorsmith, so he has a charge to give a 1 point boost, then each time you play a warrior, he gets another charge. I think he needs to be a little higher base power, because at 4, too easy to kill, and Skellige as a faction with the veteran mechanic, the veteran decks, have issues with round 1, because the veteran takes more value round 2 and 3, so you kind of have to wait to play your veteran cards, which means you're looking for other stuff to play early, and that stuff you don't want to be low tempo like this, because you're going to probably have to play a couple veteran cards round 1, which are a little bit under provision power curve, so that makes this guy a little bit weak. You'd want him to be stronger. Probably needs to be 5 power. Greatsword is a very good card. Greatsword has some very interesting interactions. So he's 10 for 6. He has veteran, so round 3 he's 12 for 6. And then when you play him, he damages himself by 6. So round 1 he goes from 10 to 4. Round 2, 11 to 5, etc., etc. But whenever you damage your opponent's unit, well, whenever your opponent's unit is damaged, they could damage themselves, which is hilarious if you're playing against Self-Wound. And specifically, like, what's his name? Swallowblood. They can get this guy really big really quick. But often you'll play this, fire off a leader charge of Reckless Flurry so it goes to 8, and then just copy it with Megascope, because the Megascope copies don't care that this thing has a deploy. They just make you 10-point guys, kind of like copying Griffins, only slightly better. Which is really interesting. Also works really well with Blaze of Glory. You send this because a veteran, if you're playing King Bran, it's 11, 12, 13 instead of 10, 11, 12, which is often just as good as having Yutta, with upside of the playing on board usually being better, and bringing it back usually being better. With the Herald, because it's a bronze, you can't actually bring it back there. Overall, just a very good card, I would say. Longship. Ooh. Longship. I will say, let's take a quick look here as we have to remove a couple cards I see coming up. But before we do that, let's rate Longship. Have a couple duplicate pictures here. Must have messed up the Marauder. But for Longship, I will take the risk of putting us in the top tier. It's 1 ping damage to everything your opponent plays. Now, 1 damage per turn engines are generally just okay, or pretty decent. They're not like bad engines, but 1 per turn engine's pretty good. Pretty good, but not amazing, I would say. The thing with Longship is that it really enables pirates, because you're just getting armor each time you do this, and that's so valuable for the deck. The other one is some cards are 1 power. Oh, sorry about my voice there. Some cards are 1 power, and if you ping it, they die. So The big examples here are Colgrim and Cleaver, both die to a longship and can't do anything, which is funny, but I mean, it's funny, but it's actually surprisingly relevant sometimes. And pinging things down by one, it's not random, it's wherever they play. So always they can play around it, but they're not going to be able to forever. You ping their engines down to easier removal range, which is really impactful a lot of the time. And I just think it's a really good engine. In fact, the ship means it has a lot of synergies, and really it's up here because of that. Just giving you armor and everything every time your opponent plays a card is so useful. Next up, we have On-Crate Raiders. Card that's been buffed and nerfed back and forth from 5 to 4 base power several times. Very good card. Very good card. As Veteran, so it's usually going to be 6 with 2 damage, which is 8 for 5 in round 3. With King Brand, it's going to be an 8. Sometimes this card gets buffed to 5 base power. Happened like 2 or 3 times at this point, in which case it's going to go up here. But overall, it's a very good card. It's nice that it gives you a way to do damage the next turn with a 2 damage order. The fact that it's 2 damage, usually, like we've said in many videos, damage is good if it gives you enough value to where it matches what you'd expect from a power versus provision perspective of the card, or if it removes something dangerous. Raiders, 2 damage, usually just gives it enough value to be good with setting up synergies in the faction, which is nice. Typically round 2 or 3 is where it gets good. Round 1, this card's not that great. But with King Brand in your deck, which we've mentioned King Brand as well, a 5 card, 5 for 5 that does 2 damage is like acceptable if it's setting up synergies, which it will. So overall good card, especially round 2 and 3. Warcrier, same deal here as the Armorsmith. Just needs another, not Armorsmith. I said this guy's name earlier. What is his name? Blacksmith, that's it. Blacksmith. And this one, the other one's Armorsmith. So Blacksmith, sorry about that if I said that wrong earlier. But same deal here. It just needs another base power, I think, Warcrier. The issue with Warcrier is that the condition of having the opponent's unit, there's cards like this in several different factions, right? There's Garcane, there's the locked one for Nilfgaard. 1 point per turn, there's the Dwarf with Barricade. 1 point per turn engines are alright. Like 1 point per turn is pretty nice. You're retaining Knight as well. 1 point per turn is not too bad. The issue is if the condition isn't very easy to set up, you're probably better off playing something else. Bloodthirst 1 is fairly easy to set up. The problem is you'd rather do more things, either more damage or be playing other stuff than this. So while the effect's not bad, and maybe at 5 for 4, it might be oppressive, maybe, but right now it's just unplayable. This card's not good. This other stuff is much better, which we'll probably get to in a minute. Yeah, Skellige 4 Persian cards have some very high power things in them, where this doesn't make the cut. We'll give an okay here to our guy, On-Crate Warrior. So 4 with 3 bleeding is very bad. We've mentioned this a few times. There are many cards in the game. Not many, but there's a good number of cards in the game that actually just do 3 bleeding on a 4 Persian or 3 Persian body. You got the Carrick soldier guy. You've got Panther, Oak Raiders. Like a lot of things just do bleeding for value. 4 with 3 bleeding is not good. Because 7 for 4 is a pretty decent standard for a card. The fact that bleeding takes time makes that not as good. But when this comes back from the graveyard, it does 3 damage instead. That's where this card's actually not bad. Robbing this with War of Clans is 5 reach, and if you're playing Highland Warlord, it's much more. So this is like you might consider a one of these in your deck. Maybe it's not that bad to create, but generally it's an alright card if you're playing War of Clans. But other than that, if you're not playing and reviving it like a bronze revive or something, not the best. I'll leave it an okay though, because I still see people play it fairly commonly. Anglerfish. Hey, let's put our rain buddy up in top tier. Anglerfish thins itself out of your deck. Both copies thin out of your deck. So it's not like Wild Hunt Riders or something. You play one of the 4 Persian cards that thins the other copy. This thins both of themselves on its own, which is phenomenal. And the condition for having rain on both enemy rows, you can control that, so you can wait for this. The downside is they go away if you lose rain. but they go to the bottom of the deck, so they've still thinned themselves, because you're never drawing them again. They have thinned themselves if you do that, and they go back in your deck. But the really good thing here is they come out of the deck with your Kelpie, they get boosts, they're beasts, set up your Corrupted Flaminica, and really just thinning themselves out makes them phenomenal. Like, thinning two things out of your deck on their own is really good. One of the better things about Rain is this. Whatever Rain you're playing the Anglerfish. Next up, we have Armor Up, the Skellige Witcher special. So it does 2 damage, and it spawns 3 Witcher tokens, Witcher students that have 1 armor and 1 health, because they take a damage. Great setup for things like Mentor. Great setup for things like Vesemir Mentor as well. Bear Witcher Mentor is the first mentor I was discussing. Gives you a bunch of bodies so your Berengar doesn't die. Overall, surprisingly good card despite it only on paper being 5 value. It really just sets up enough synergies that it's worth it in the long run. Even if you just like play these, your Bear Quartermaster gets extra points from hitting these things with armor. Like we said, the Mentor just gets an extra point on each of those, which you're going to play anyway, so it makes it 8. Overall, just really good. Armored Drakkar. I think Armored Drakkar is a good card too. Great self-wound synergies, works great with the Svalblood Priest, works great with the Svalblood himself, works great with the Totem if you have nothing else better to hit with Totem. Works great with Mardrome. Just a good outlet for doing self-wound stuff. Bear Witcher Adept, also good. We're going to rank this card in good. With Portal, obviously, it's phenomenal, pulling this off a Portal. Portal works great in Witchers, but we're just going to rate this on its own right now. Considering this Portal comes off Portal, I don't think it'd move it up here even with a Portal consideration, but I think it's a very good card for Witchers. The problem with the Adept is you really want it off a Portal. You don't really want to play out of hand, but it is really good because the Portal interaction. When you pull this out, it starts getting armor, sets up stuff. Mentor, we've mentioned Mentor a few times now. So we've already shown its card text and everything. Mentor is a good finisher, but you'd much rather have the option to make Mentor off the Witcher location than actually play the Mentor in your deck. For that reason, I'm going to put it in okay. It does work very well in Otkill decks. As an option to bring back off of the Otkill, one of the Freya's Blessings might be a good choice to bring back one of these as an option, as a one-of, which is kind of mentioned this for okay. Sometimes the okay bronzes are good as a one-of, but maybe you don't want to. So I think this fits in here pretty well. I think it's an okay card. Quartermaster is quite good, though. Spawning tokens is good. Self-wound synergy is good. The value is really there. It's 8 for 4 if you're hitting armor or something with it, or setting up self-wound. Zeal on the order means you're always going to get it. You can play it proactively if you want to. The opponent doesn't really want to kill this, but they might. And just overall, very solid card. Very solid card. Goes in so many different decks very well. Bear Witcher, okay. Let's think here. Does Bear Witcher warrant the excellent tier or not? That is the question. 9 for 5 is good. That's quite good. It has 3 damage on it with Adrenaline. If you're not in Adrenaline, it's a 6 for 5, which is terrible. But its Adrenaline is pretty easy to reach. It's a higher number Adrenaline, which makes it pretty consistent to have the Adrenaline. The 3 damage is nice. And the fact it comes with a 9 for 5 tempo is really good. Has great synergies with stuff like Geralt Quen. Great synergies in Self-Wound as well, because he damages himself while damaging the opponent. Sometimes you're playing a Witcher deck. Witcher's Reckless Flurry and stuff, so you damage them. It has 9 base power, which makes it really good with Triss Meteor Shower in Renfrey decks. I think it's going up in the excellence here. I think Bear Witcher is just a really great card. Boat Builders is alright. Specifically for Otkill decks, it's not bad to have a Boat Builder in there as a bring back have as a ship. That being said, this is the Skellige tier list. No one's ever played this in Syndicate, much like Sucrose. But yeah, I think this card's alright. It's not phenomenal. The armor synergies are a bit harder to make work in here than something like Skellige, or something like Scoia'tael rather, with dwarves. But there are some synergies with the armor, because if we take a look at Boat Builders, you really only need the deploy to give value, right? 2 armor, that 2 armor turns to 2 points somehow, it's 8 for 5. Then you're happy. And the 1 per turn or armor order can be useful. Just usually the decks playing this don't have the best way to take advantage of it, so it usually doesn't pay off that much, but it's not bad. I would say it's kind of like Bear with Your Mentor. It could often be like a good one of like an Otkel deck or something, but I wouldn't rate it more highly than this. Brockvar Hunter? Actually not too bad. I think I'll put it here. So, he damages enemy unit by the number of enemy units that are damaged. This is much better to get off of Feral Bond than is put in your deck, which we'll talk about Feral Bond later. Kind of applies to a lot of these Bronze Warriors. But I think it's between okay and weak for me. If they have 3 damage units, it does 3 damage, which can then kill one of the damaged units. I still want to say this is weak. Getting 4 damaged units, which is where the value comes in, is at 4 is where you can start killing stuff. 4, you can start killing the engines. 4, you can start getting enough value that this really starts to shine. 8 for 4. Before that, though, it's not great. At 3 is kind of on the edge where you want it, but you really want 4 each time you play this. Which is why it's better off of a Feral Bond than playing it in your deck. Yeah, I still think it's weak. Wait, this one is Brockvar Hunter. This one's Archer. Yeah, I mixed up their names there. Sorry, guys. The first one's Brockvar Archer. This one's Hunter. Right? Yeah, Hunter, and this one's Archer. Sorry about that, guys. We're almost to the good one. But anyway, Hunter, 1 damage every other turn. Not good enough. It's not good enough. If you play a Beast, it cools down. Cool idea to synergize Beasts with the Hunter. Cool idea. Some of the Beasts do want the Bloodthirst, like Ulfheden. That being said, it's just not good enough. Not good enough. And let's put this up here. Brockvar Warrior, though, 2 power, does 3 damage, 2 then 1. As we said about damage before, if it gives you enough value to be on the power versus precision curve consistently, it is good enough, or if it removes, it's good enough. This does both. 3 damage if you need to remove something. 5 for 4 if it removes something is pretty good with the 3 damage. If you're removing something, you're happy. If you're not going to remove something, you don't care because you're getting 8 value with the 6 damage, which is very, very good. Phenomenal combo with Alula because the Alula will ping 1 on each of the Brockvar Warriors hit. You play Alula, you play this, 3, 2, 1 from this. Alula hits them again for an extra 3 damage. Plus, that way you can get the extra hits from Brockvar Warrior, and then Alula can finish off the card that's at 4, 3, or 2. So, really good synergies, really good value. Phenomenal card. Next up, we have the Crow Clan Druid. It replays the Bronze Alchemy from your graveyard. 4 precision alchemy by banishing a crow. That is typically going to give you 8 for 4 while activating synergies, because most of the alchemies will play for 6. On paper, that's good. Synergistically, very good. Overall, it's good. It's just a really good card for the alchemy decks. The problem is often getting the crows on board because you don't have that many ways to make them. You have Crow Mother, deploy. You have the Rhizome that comes off of the scenario. You have Rhizome replay with the Bride or off of the Axle. You often actually just want to run a 1-of copy of the Rhizome just to make sure you can enable this round 3. But the effect is quite good. Preacher. I think we'll put Preacher in excellent. Druids aren't the best deck, but Preacher is a kind of nuts engine. It's 1 each time you play a alchemy, and 2 if bonded. 2 per alchemy is very dangerous, especially when cards can play extra alchemies like this, like Leader, like Mushy Truffle, like Scenario. Very dangerous. Especially when you get Otkel in the picture, and considering there's Freya's Blessings that can replay these when they die. You can extra copies from the Truffle we mentioned. You have Troubadour, works pretty well here. But overall, I just think that this super strong engine card. I think I will put this up here. Druids are carried by the fact that this engine gets out of control if you get multiple copies unchecked. Messenger, Crow Clan, or Crow Messenger, I should say. Messenger makes its own deck. You just spam this. As you play it, and it plays all copies from your graveyard, and if you have an alchemy in your hand, it plays all from your deck. Sometimes people forget about that and don't pull the one out of the deck. Often you don't want to pull the one out of the deck, though, so you can just play it later without having to Freya's Blessing it. Overall, I will say that Messenger is a good card. It does make a deck. That deck's kind of obnoxious to play against if you don't like short round 2s and 3s. But I will say... I'm not ranking the deck. I'm just considering how strong this card is. It does make the deck, though. I think I'll put it up here. I think Messenger is really good. It does make its deck, and its deck is pretty strong, actually. We're going to have to play this deck again soon. We haven't done it in a long time. But I think this is between good and excellent. I will put it up here. Is that being a bit nice to this card? Maybe. But the fact is, once you've got the deck set up with this, you're playing for like 20 point, 26, 28 point turns in round 2 and 3 just playing this. And the deck actually works pretty well together. Unlike something where Blue Stripes Commandos can do the same thing, this is just much better. Rhizome, we mentioned this earlier. Rhizome gets to go in okay, because you often just want one of these to trigger your druids. So I do think this actually makes it okay. Not an amazing card, but sometimes one you put in to have the option to spawn the extra crows. Deranged Corsair often goes back between 3 and 2 power. This is a 12 for 5, of which 9 of it is damage. Assuming you can kill the card you infuse, which you will kill the card you infuse, either the leader charge or some order on your board, or you infuse like a 1 power card when there's 3 cards, 1 or 2 cards on the row. Just kill it later with a later deploy. So it is usually 12 for 5 with 9 damage, which is kind of ludicrous if you think about it. It does take time, but it's damage. It's so good. It's just so good. It's a pirate, has great synergies. Pirates love the random damage from the Cataclysm, get more armor. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Corsair, Demon Corsair is all right. It's not bad. Like, this is a decent way to take advantage of your armor. Remove 2 armor, get 2 boost. If you play a ship, the cooldown goes from 2 to 1, which is pretty nice. But the problem with it that I have is the starting cooldown of 2. Because if we take a look here at this guy, cooldown 2 to start with means that it's 1 point per turn of self-wound synergy. You just would rather have like a priest or something that's getting 2 per turn off of the payoff. So it's not the best choice, but if you want to put another way in to take advantage of Drakkar or something, it's not too bad. Light Longship is a good card as well. Good for these pirates, good for the decks that just want a little bit of ping damage, mostly pirates. It's just pretty good. Often you're not damaging yourself because it's armored, and you're pretty good at targeting damage on opponents' things to get armor on your hand. The reason why it actually works out pretty decently value-wise is if this card's armored, it's not going to damage itself. And if it isn't armored, it's giving armor to everything in your hand because you're trying to set your pirates up. So it's a pretty good chip. The Moon, is this Smuggler? I think this is Smuggler. Pirate Captain, I get them mixed up. This one is the Smuggler. This one is the Smuggler. Yeah. Pirate Captain. Surprisingly all right. So if we take a look here, he's got the Bloodthirst 2 to gain Zeal. Damage unit by 0. It is not 0, just 1. A couple things aren't quite right on the Gwent website, but I don't think they fixed that. Anyway, it's 3 damage on an order with Zeal. It's between weak and okay. I see it used, but not that often. I will rank it as weak, though, I think. I think Pirate Captain needs a power. There's a lot of Skellige bronzes that are like 4 with 3 conditional damage, right? There's Marauder, that's random. This is targeted, but has Bloodthirst set up. There's Rockford Warrior will do 3 to the first thing it hits. Archer can do 3 if there's 3 damage sticks. There's a lot of things kind of like this. But I think this one's just a little bit below the curve. I think It can be okay, but I would say, for me, I'd put it in weak, although I can see it going okay as well. Next up, we have the Demon Pirate. Actually, a pretty decent card, all things considered. 8 for 5. It's what you're looking for. The downside is if you don't control a ship, discard the top card of your deck. Actually, I think it's remove. Isn't that remove the top card of your deck? Yeah, it's discard. It goes to top of your deck to the graveyard. It doesn't trigger discard synergies. By discard, I meant sent to the graveyard, yeah. If you control a ship, it's canceled. Pretty darn easy to control a ship. And sometimes you don't want to control a ship because you want to send a card to set up your compass, which sometimes that's an upside. So this is mainly to be considered in Otcal decks. In Otcal decks, it's a good card, I would say. Not too bad in Pirates either. I would actually rate this pretty solidly, thanks to being good in Otcal. Smuggler, same deal. Very good in Otcal. We kind of mentioned this already. It does 1 damage on its order. If you control a ship, you get a second copy of it. That is pretty nice, because if you're getting a copy of it, it's 8 for 5. You get the 2 3s and the 2/1 damage pings, which can be used to set up more armor on your pirates in your hand. But mainly you're going to be used with Otkill, because making extra copies of it when you play it means you'll have enough to use multiple Freya's Blessings on later, and then you can bring back a whole bunch of these. Bring back a ship, bring back like 3 of these, and then you're looking at a whole bunch of value. All that being said, though, I don't think it quite makes it up into the excellent tier, but I think it's a very good card. Next up, we have the Demon Pirate. Ship, whatever this is called. I think it's ship. Let's see if we can get this one right. Warship. Ship's close enough. Anyway, so this is a 1 for 4 that when it dies, it brings back your highest cost pirate. Highest power pirate, I should say. Highest power bronze pirate. When you play a guy, it takes a damage. When you play a pirate, it damages itself and a random enemy unit by 1. So, in the perfect world, you play this with no armor. You play another card. This does 1 ping to the opponent and kills itself and brings back the pirate. In that perfect world, you got a 9 for 4. If this is locked, you played a 1 for 4. If you don't have this pirate, you're not getting good value. The real issue with this is not so much the value. The real issue is that there isn't a deck that wants this. Because if you're playing the Demon Pirate, which is by far the best choice, you're in Otkel. And you're bringing it back with the Otkel if you need to. This doesn't really fit in that deck. If you're playing Self Wound, it's hard to play Self Wound with Pirates. The deck just doesn't exist that wants this more than anything else. I will leave this in okay because it cannot be buffed anymore, because gaining power is a nerf to the card because you want it to die more. So this is either meme or it's an okay. Or niche. I'm going to be generous. I will place this in okay and say there's a deck out there that likes this card and I'm just not aware of it or hasn't been created yet. To be honest, just getting 1 power, paying to bring back a Turshek Skirmisher or bring back a Demon Pirate doesn't sound that bad. It's just building the deck that has the synergies and functions well with this in it is a challenge. So, I mean, you can also just Small Blood and kill this and bring back something. I don't know, guys. I think there's something for this somewhere, and I just don't know what it is. Next up, we have Berserker. It's bad. 7 for 4 with Bloodthirst 3 lock. If you don't lock it, it dies when it takes 3 damage or whatever. It's not good. This is like Berserker, right? Yeah, Disgrace Brawler. Oh, not Berserker. Disgrace Brawler. Sorry, guys. Yeah, the Bloodthirst isn't that hard to do. Bloodthirst 1 isn't that hard. A Berserk 3 Destroy Self? Yikes. Like we've said, Skellige has some very good 4 provision cards. There's not really a reason to take this one. I'm going to put it in weak. Because at 8 for 4, there's a big portal consideration, although they can still kill it by berserking either 3. Yeah, I think I'll put it in weak. Maybe at 8 for 4, there's some portal considerations. The Bloodthirst 1 isn't that hard. Maybe then it gets played, but for now, it doesn't really have a spot. Queen's Guard. Guys, I know that I'm biased towards Golden Necker Self Wound. I know that. That deck's very good, though. And I think Queensguard's actually just a really good card. Is this wrong? What's this above? It's above Smuggler. It's above Raider. This is Berserk 3, spawn a copy of self. If it goes off once, it's an 8 for 5, and then it's an extra 3 points each time you can use the order. No, this deserves to be good, not an excellent. We won't be biased. This is a good card. Queensguard's a good card. Works very well in Golden Necker with Self Wound, mainly its best spot, but it defines that deck. You do love this card. You Singer stuff. You play your Corrupted Flaminikas on it. Overall, very good. Works great with Sarah's Fearless in particular. But I will say it's probably only a good card, not in the top tier. Next up, we have Shield Maiden. Shield Maiden summons a copy of itself out of deck when it takes damage. 5 for 5 that summons when it takes damage is basically the insanity effect of the Syndicate 5s that tutor, whose name I forgot at the moment. Sorry about that, guys. We've been recording this video for like 3 hours, and because of editing and stuff, will end up being shorter than that. But kind of hard to keep everything straight for that long. That being said, the Shield Maiden is pretty good, but mainly because of Saris. Mainly because of Saris. You don't play Shield Maidens on their own, but I'll put them in the same tier as Saris, I think. I'll just do that, make it easy. This is Berserker. D-Moon Berserker. Just kidding, guys. It's not D-Moon Berserker. It is Drummond Berserker. But this card is probably going to go up here. As Self Wound synergies, it plays 8 for 4 after it pings itself down to 3 and transforms. Yes, what often will happen is they'll hit it at 4 with a 4 damage special, and then it's only been a 5 for 4, but they don't really want to use removal on this. There's better things to remove most of the time. It transforms into a Bear Abomination, which has great synergies with Svalblood. The fact that it transforms is phenomenal in Lippy decks, because you don't get to put it back in your deck, because the Bear Abomination is doomed. It doesn't go to your graveyard. I really like this bronze. When I have a 4-version bronze slot left, and I don't know what to goes in it, I put this in it. That being said, I think it just goes here. I think these are better cards. All right, let's go to next. Give the adjacent unit to the right 4 bleeding and opponent 4 bleeding. This card really fell off. Really fell off a lot. I don't think this card's very good. So take a look at the Drummond warrior lady here. That's not her name. But if we take a look at her, the villager, unit to the right 4 bleeding, then give an enemy unit 4 bleeding. 4 bleeding is 8 for 4. It takes a long time though, and like we said, Skellige has some really great 4-version cards. This just doesn't make the cut. Bleeding on paper sounds good though. On paper, it sounds like you'll set up Bloodthirst and stuff, but the bleeding value isn't the best unless you someone to pay it off like Vampires does. Oh boy. Okay, well, that's where he's going. So we've got the Drummond Warmonger here. Deploy. Damage 3 adjacent units by 1. That is a 6 for 5. Conditional on having 3 units that can take damage. Bloodthirst hecking 5. 5. Damage all units on a row by 1. Do you know how hard it is to get Bloodthirst 5? That's just insane. Damage all units on a row by 1 instead? 5. Yes, I know this does damage, which can help set up the Bloodthirst effect. But 5's so high. And this is adjacent entities, not 3 enemies of your choice. Row punish. Row punish. What's a row punish when we have Svalbard board punish? Yeah, I mean, this card's so bad. Let me think though. I think, to be honest, I can't rightly put it in meme tier because at 4 provisions, it might become interesting. Like it would be an interesting 4 provision card, maybe with a power buff too if it's still not played. But I think I just put it in bad. I can't put it in meme because as a 4 provision row punish tech, that is legitimately an interesting card to consider. So I think we'll put it in bad instead. Feral Bond. Ooh, Feral Bond. What a card. I think I like Feral Bond up here. So Feral Bond is the best way to get your armor going in Pirates if your opponent's not cooperating by not playing units or playing boosted cards or armored cards. You give your opponent a Skellige Wolf, deal damage to it, and then you spawn one of the list of warriors. If you have Bloodthirst 3, which is 2 plus this card, because this card will give you a Bloodthirst via the damaged wolf, then you can make the warrior of your choice. There are a lot of conditional warriors and just good ones, right? We've got Brockfire Warriors, good. You can make Greatsword, which is good. Conditionally, just if you have a lot of damage out, you start spamming archers, which is pretty nice, and you get really good value. Plus, you're giving armor and stuff in your hand. If you're playing Highland Warlords, or even just like one Highland Warlord or something, you play the wolf just dies, and then you get it back to your board. If you're not playing Highland Warlords, you'll probably do like a ping damage or something, and then the wolf comes back to your board. Then you got 2 points plus the warrior, which is quite nice. So the fact that this gives the opponent the wolf often doesn't matter, because you'll kill it with something like Corsair, you'll kill it with Rain if you're playing like a Fuchsia, or just Rain itself, with ping damage for stuff like Marauder, Alula, Hershka. There's a lot of ways to do it. Really good. Okay, now we're talking though. Like we're getting into some cards here. That's for sure. Freya's Blessing. This card's almost unfair. This card's borderline unfair. 5 provisions, replay a bronze. Now, Necromancy's a neutral to replay a bronze. It's 7 provisions, and Necromancy gets played in certain decks that want to replay their bronzes. You don't have to play 5 in Skellige. You can bring back all your best stuff. You want more Messengers of the Sea? Sure thing. You want more Highland Warlords? Why not? You want more Greatswords coming back? Sure. You want your Shield Maidens coming back, or your Queen's Guards coming back? You spam them more? Yeah, go for it. Just bring back Bear Witchers. Why not? Overall, this card is just phenomenal value. Bringing back your best cards is a super strong effect. This only costs 5. It is an alchemy, so it has synergies with Preachers, which is probably one of the best things you can bring back as well. We didn't mention. You've Otkel, it can make multiple in one turn as a finisher setup, or it can start to a credible round 3. Yeah, I don't have much else to say. This card's just borderline unfair. Next up, we have Funeral Boat. Funeral Boat's pretty good. When a card enters the graveyard during your turn, it pings the opponent. Seagull works really well with this. Lippy works really well with this. This was changed because at some point for Funeral Boats, this... I don't think I said your turn previously. It was changed a while back, but a little tidbit there. It is random damage, but it's more than 1 a turn often. Sihil, another big shout out there, right? You Sihil. Because your Sihil decks are spamming removal to kill the opponent's card. Because you play a removal card, it kills the opponent's thing. That's 2 things entering the graveyard. But since they changed it since it's your turn, it doesn't matter which graveyard it's going in. If you do that, you play your thing, remove their card, they take a ping from you playing the special, they take another ping from the thing entering the graveyard. Maybe that kills another card, they take another ping. Funeral Boat adds up very quickly, but the fact that it's a 4/4 keeps it in check. It's one of those 4/4 engines where being at 4 makes sense because the payoff is really, really high. Gutting Slash is a good card, I would say. 4/4 removal is mediocre. 6/4 though is extremely good, and Bloodthirst 2 isn't that hard to ask for. I think it's a good card. Mostly played in Raid Warriors because you can up the base damage, but it's also pretty good in Rain, where you can guarantee often that you'll hit the cap of having 2 Bloodthirsts. any deck that's not a Renfrey deck, but is running Reckless Flurry is a consideration in as well. For example, Lippy decks or Shoop decks, this is a great one-off to put in there. I think overall it's a good card. Half-Brew Singer, I personally love this card. I think it's quite good. It is 9 for 5 if you heal 2 the turn you play it, with 2 per turn engine if you're healing still. Heal engine is not the most common thing, but this really shines in Golden Necker Self Wound, and it really shines in any Queensguard deck, to be honest, because the Queensguards go down to 3, you heal them with Half-Brew, get those points back, get the Siren, really nice. Surprisingly good with Otkel as well. If you Otkel 2 Sirens, that's a lot of points because you can heal the Otkel immediately. I think it's overall a good card. Its decks are very specific, but it is quite good in them. I love this card particularly because of the singing. I like the cards with special, like the song cards, like Master Mirror 2, stuff like that. Hermit is okay. It's okay, or is it weak? I think Hermit's going to fall in the weak, actually. Yeah. So Hermit does damage itself, which means it's not actually playing for 7 when you play out of hand. It's playing for 3. 3 is, I think, too low. I think it has to be 4. So 8 and then knocks itself down to 4 might make it better. But then Berserk, he heals himself by damaging the thing to the right. So eventually he'll be 8 by damaging the thing next to it by 2. So it's really only playing for 5 value here without self-wound synergies. That's not enough. I don't think. That's not enough. The synergies, there's better ways to set up. Hey Druid. I think that is what this is called. No, it's Herbalist. It is a Druid, but it's Herbalist. Now, deploy Heal 3 and Boost 3. On paper, is 7 for 4 value, which I've said is a good baseline for 4-pushing card. Heal 3 is pretty rough to ask for, though. If you're self-wounding, most of the self-wound is by 2. And there's better ways to heal and better ways to do this. In 4 provisions, you'd rather have like Quartermasters or something. And if you're not healing, this is playing for 4. This card is bad. Would this at 2 be considered? It would be a 2 that heals 3 and boosts 3. That would be 8 if you heal. The thing is, the 4-person slot for these decks have a lot of good options, like we've already mentioned. I'm going to put this in bad. I don't think it's unsavable. I think it's bad, though. Hammy Protector. Now, this card is primarily exploited in the armor decks with Armor Smith, because what you do, for those of you who don't know, which is probably nobody, because if you watch this long, you're either a new player and probably saw this deck once and had to look up what it did, or you are just supporting the channel, which I greatly appreciate. Thank you, guys. But this card is primarily played with Sayana, and then Operator, and then you give your opponent 2 of these, infused with Tainted Ale. Combo goes from there. But when an adjacent unit takes damage, he boosts himself by 1. On paper, that could work with Self-Wound. The thing is, this card is 5 for 5. It was 4 for the longest time, 4 power. Have not seen it. I have not experimented with this card enough to decide on a new deck for it. So for now, I'm leaving it besides the Armor Smith with a note that has potential. We'll see if we can find something to make it work. Because these two primarily just used together, but I think there's got to be something else for him. Scald is an excellent card. Scald discards a card, draws a card. That's a cycle for your deck. That is really great. And this is the wrong Scald picture because Scald is 5 power. 1 second here. Let's just go in here. Grab the Scald. That is 4. Drag him out. All fixed up there. So Scald is excellent card, as we just said. 5 power. Very nice. It tempos for 8 when you discard the common fodders for it. Cycling your deck is really good. Helps set up things like Compass. Helps set up Graveyard if you need to for Blessing. Really nice in round 1. If you end up drawing both your Blessings, you're going to go to a long round 3. You can just discard a unit and bring it back with these Blessing because the Skull can set that up. And just cycling your deck's really good. Highly value that. This card's not good, though. So this does 2 damage to itself and an enemy. It just doesn't have the power to support it. 6 or 4 is not worth what it does. It's not good enough. At 7 base power, it would be a lot more in line with a lot of the Skellige bronzes that are 7 for 4 with some kind of conditional damage. I think it just needs a buff. It might even be in here, because the conditional damage doesn't reach the... Like, 2 conditional damage is just value. If it was 8, obviously a double buff, I think it would be too good, so we'll put it in weak. Okay, what's this thing doing? Highland Warlord is one of the best bronze cards in the entirety of Gwent. People always argue with me that I overvalue Highland Warlord and that it should be a 5% card, and I'm crazy for even calling it a 6. But guys, just hear me out. Highland Warlord, if we take a look here, I don't know why I have to argue this. People always tell me how Highland Warlord and Warriors are bad and don't deserve to be nerfed and need to be buffed with this back to 5. I don't know why you guys comment this, but let's take a look. Veteran, increase the raid damage of your cards by 1 for the rest of the game. All your raids get +1 damage. Okay. Let's be conservative and say you only play 7 raids after this. Or heck, let's say you play 6. So you play 6 raids after this. That is a 9 for 6 value with 6 carryover. That is damage. That's really good. 6 carryover is really good. Damage carryover is unheard of outside of this entire deck. And maybe Temple Muddley on duels. But once you get to say you're going to play 8 raids, which is probably fairly likely. 8 raids, 8 damage carryover. Okay. In terms of pure value, it's extremely good. 8 carryover Siri Nova levels of carryover. It is adding damage. That damage lets your damaged cards reach thresholds to kill enemy units. That makes it even better, because you're getting it to thresholds where you can start killing everything. You can replay this. Let's say you play 2 Highland Warlords, a Freya's Blessing, and a Herald or Fuchsia. Fuchsia round 2, that's the common one, right? Blessing, Fuchsia round 2. 4 damage on all of your raids means your raids will kill every engine the opponent plays while developing you points. All from a 6 provision bronze. Yes, it takes a bit of setup. Yes, it doesn't have high tempo the turn you play it. That is true for a lot of carryover cards, though, and this one is a 6 provision bronze that can be replayed a whole bunch of times. This card is incredibly strong, and anyone who keeps arguing with me that's in 5 provisions, I don't understand it. It definitely is not a 5 provision card. I mention this because this is one of the most changed cards on the Balance Council. It's been between 5 and 7 provisions, mostly 5 and 6. Start at 5. And overall, it's just an incredibly powerful card, and it makes an entire deck archetype function by just letting you kill all your opponent's stuff while developing points. Little Half-Root is a good card. It's got Bonded. The Bonded makes it to the average range, right? It's 6, and then the second copy goes to 8, and then that averages out to 7 points. The nice thing about Little Half-Root, though, is that it spawns, or it doesn't spawn, it creates rain. The fact that it makes rain is actually just good enough that at 6 or 4, you're happy enough just to play this and get the rain. It has a very good threshold at being 6 for using with the Sove we've mentioned. If you have 2 Bloodthirst, Sove with the Patch Shadow Fury Leader will be able to kill this. It works well with stuff like the Kelpie, because you'll start boosting it back up. The fact that it makes rain is really nice to get a cheap way to make rain without leadering. Cheap as in 4 provisions. To summon out things like Anglerfish. Just a solid card. Mardrome. Mardrome's also pretty decent. We'll put Mardrome in good because specifically of Armor Drakkar and Self Wound with Draco Turtle. It's good in that deck, and that's where we'll put it. Next up we have Melusine Cultist. Ooh, Melusine Cultist. On paper, the thing we just said about Little Half-Root applies here, right? It's a fairly cheap 5 provision way to make rain that also has engine potential, and that's kind of nice. What isn't nice is Little Half-Root's 6 power. The opponent is not going to spend a 6 power removal to kill this, which means you can very much count on this to give you rain. This you cannot count on you to get rain because the opponent will often kill it because that only takes 5 removal, and it applies an engine effect. So it's a high value thing to kill, whereas they're not going to kill Half-Root, which is why I much prefer Little Half-Root than this guy, because it's much more consistently going to give you rain and it's cheaper. That being said, if you're playing a very heavy rain deck, losing Cultist is okay. But I would say that despite it being really good value on paper, it's not the best rain card. And the best rain decks do not play this because they're not playing all in rain. They're either playing Renfree or something else. Well, they're playing Renfree, let's be real. But this card's alright. It's good in the rain decks, kind of. Yeah, I can't really justify it being there. I think I'm leaving it okay. It works well in the decks it works well in, but it's not the best. Like the value, if you just look at it on paper, the value is there. Right, the value is definitely there. If you look at this on paper, 4 with rain, that's 4 value, plus the engine of 1 per turn. The thing is, you often want to open with this. You can start getting rain out early. Right, you want to play this first. You can get rain out early on the opponent's board. The opponent will just not play opposite it. So you can either get the rain or you can get the boost. Often you're not getting both. That's an issue. Yeah, it's an alright card. I'm leaving it okay. People can fight me on that one. I will be happy to listen and be changed. As I said, I can change my mind on these pretty easily sometimes. It's on the brink. Oh, here we go. Let's throw this up here. Messenger of the Sea. Rain payoff. Each time rain damages an enemy unit, it boosts by 1. Annoyingly, that does mean that if they have armor or shields, you do not get points, which does hold it back. Like, the Rainer Storm has to damage enemy unit, so they can't have... It works on boosted, but not armored and shields. That can be a problem. It also means that Messenger from the Sea decks are one of the few decks, not few decks, are one of the decks that have really polarizing matchups. If you're playing a pretty heavy rain deck with messengers, it's very, very difficult to beat something like Onslaught, where everything has a ton of armor. It's hard to win against soldiers who have a bunch of armor, Nilfgaard soldiers in particular. Those matchups are extremely difficult because you need to do damage with the rain. That being said, a very few matchups are actually unwinnable, just because the opponent can brick their draws, but in optimal worlds, those if you both draw well, those matchups are probably unwinnable. But that's a problem for Rain. What really helps Messenger, though, is that Messenger is a beast, and you can get enough Rain with Renfree that just having this in your deck gives you engines that really add up a lot of points. So it does get out of control. It's for a turn if you're undamaged Rain, and once you drop like a Kraken or something, you have a Storm out, or you're playing Skellige Storm. If you Storm like a row of units with Kraken, you're getting 7 points per turn on that row from the Storm while damaging them by 7. It really gets out of control. So Messenger seems a very powerful engine. It does have some limitations, but I still think it warrants this tier. Primal Savagery. Where is the correct Primal Savagery? Man, making a lot of mistakes in this one when we set up the cards. I apologize. Primal Savagery is a 5 version card now. So we'll fix the picture after. So Primal Savagery damages by 2. Deathblow spawns Bear Abomination. That is 8 points of value. You play this with Highland Warlord, so this gets up to like 6 or 7. You can kill their engine while developing your own points. The best way to play against this round 3 is just to not play your cards and discard them, because if they held on to 2 Primal Savageries, they're bricks. Obviously not every deck can do that, but it's quite funny. Outside of that though, it is a very high value card once you got your Highland Warlords going. And even if they're not going, as long as you get the death blow, it is good value. Alright, so let's grab the actual Primal Savagery here, drop it in the tier list. Make sure we got the updated picture there for you guys. A little break to grab that. And I'm putting it good. Good card. Perfect. Next up we have Raging Bear, also a good card. At 9 for 5, it's much more reasonable than at 8 for 5. Has some self-food synergies. Typically you just want to play this first in the round like Nilfgaardian Knight. Almost exactly the same, actually. You just play it first in the round. It's 9 for 5. It's very good. Has some good synergies with Blaze of Glory, good synergies with Yalmar, good synergies with Triss Meteor Shower, and overall just a solid card. Usually played in Renfree Beast more than anything else, but can be played in Self Wound as well. Savage Bear. Savage Bear's been interesting. Savage Bear is a 6 for 4 with 2 of the values bleeding, but 8 for 4 with 4 bleeding if there's already one in your graveyard. And it's better than most 8 for 4s with bleeding, because the bleeding goes on 2 different targets. It's 2 bleeding on one, 2 bleeding on the other, which means in 1 turn it's 6, and in 2 turns it's 8, rather than waiting 4 turns to get all 8 value. Not... I'm gonna put it okay. Okay. I think Savage Bear has fallen off a bit. It's still played for Rent-Free Beasts and decks that want to play Corrupted Fulminica as a decent-ish beast you can play at 4 provisions and discard. But the nice thing about it is if you discard one, the second one's actually not a bad card. So we'll leave it in okay, I think. Sea Serpent's also okay. This does 3 damage and it boosts itself by 1 for each turn Rain was out on the board. Not a bad card to throw down at the end of a Rain round, where you can get like 5 or 6 boosts plus do 3 damage. The thing is, usually you don't need that, and at 5 provisions, you could run something else, right? Because after 4 turns of Rain, it does 3 damage, and it's worth 8. 4 turns of Rain is kind of a while, because you want the Rain once they already have like 2 units on a row, so you might not open with the Rain card, you might wait a turn. So then you're looking at like turn 6 or 7 in a round where it starts being alright, like average, and above that, it's pretty nice, but usually you don't end up with this being worth that much. It's a one-of card, I would say. Probably deserving for the okay. Seagull. 2 for 7 was 1 for 4 at some point where it was good. Then it just went through a myriad of changes to end up at 2 for 7 where it is still good. And we've changed basically nothing. Fantastic. That being said, you can make decks with Seagull. It works quite well with Funeral Boat. You can use it with the Beasts because it is a pretty good value. If you make 3 copies of the Seagull, you damage 3 enemy units, and then you get 3 copies of Seagull in your graveyard. They come back. Seagull is giving you 8 points of carryover if you don't kill enemy units. Right, because the Seagull initially on the board will be in your graveyard, and the 3 you created will be in the graveyard. So Seagull plays if you hit 3 enemy units and damage them. He has to damage them. Right, so Seagull's a bit different than most cards. Or if we take a look, damage 3 units by 1, then spawn a Seagull for each target damaged or destroyed. They have to take damage, like be in red numbers. You can't like hit a boosted card for this. That being said, you can hit your own if the opponent has stuff, but ideally you'd hit 3 enemy units and damage them. That would be a 5 value play. Then you get 3 in your graveyard, that is 11. And then this one comes back later. So it's a 13-point card if you hit it perfectly, with 8 points of carryover. That's still ridiculous. Seagull's very good. What keeps it from being too prevalent is 7 provisions is a lot to pay for a bronze. That being said, it has Siri Nova levels of carryover on it. The issue that I think really holds it back is often you don't really get the resilience, the carryover effect, because you end up killing stuff in the round you play it, in which case it's just an 11 for 7 with 2 carryover. This card has to still be crazy, but I don't see people play it. One thing I will say is that when Seagull was 4-version card previously, is that if you missed one of these spawns on the Seagull, it wasn't that big a deal. Now that it's a 7-version card, if you miss creating one of the Seagulls, it actually matters a lot more. Because if you say you only get 2 Seagulls in your graveyard, now it's not nearly as good. But I still think this card's very strong. It's very good in Rent-Free Beasts. You can play this with not offering. It works incredibly well with Blessing, because you can play the Seagull, put the Seagulls in your graveyard, then Blessing the Seagulls back. There must be some deck with this that's really good. But I don't see it. I haven't seen it played, but there must be a way for this to be good. Just on paper, the value is so high. I'm leaving it good. It might be excellent if I know the deck exists. Stunning Blow, okay card. 5 damage, does extra if they have armor. Sometimes matters, sometimes not. This card was nuts before it got reworked. But that was a long time ago at this point. For any new players, there used to be a 4-position card that did 4 or 7 with armor, which was nuts, because 7 damage on a 4 was ridiculous. As it is, it's a 1-of in Raid Warriors, One-of cards kind of fall into the okay tier. We might want to play one. Not bad. Sometimes if you're playing like a shoop deck as well, you might run one because anti-armor tech's not bad. This guy's not bad either. The Small Blood Ravager? Not Ravager. Butcher. It's Butcher. It's going to be Butcher. I'll just check though. Yeah, it's Butcher. So damage allied by 2, give out 3 bleeding. Not a bad little way to deploy some self-wound synergies. But I think the ways above it are better. But it's not too bad. Like Quartermaster's better. Totem's way better. But I think it's not too bad if you want to include another way in your self-wound deck to do some self-wound damage. It's not too bad. On the other hand, though, the thing is on paper, this isn't great. Like it does 2. On paper, it's a 6. You know what? I'm putting this down here. Same with this one. This is the Cultist? Yeah, it is Cultist. So it heals the unit to the left by 1, damages the one to the right by 1. Healing, like we said, is pretty nice in self-wound, but there's better ways. This is a 5 for 4. That's not... The fact that it's 1% cheaper than Singer doesn't make up for the fact that Singer is way better of a heal engine. So this is also weak. Fanatic, though. This is on its own in your deck. I will rake it at... Rake. This card is okay. It's okay because it goes with Artis, and it's okay because it transforms in a Shoop deck or something like that, or Lippy deck, I should say, where it transforms into the Bear Abomination and gets doomed and doesn't come back. So in Lippy Self-Wound, if you have extra leader charges to use on a Self-Wound synergy card, this one's not too bad because it won't clog your deck when you do the Lippy swap. All that being said, this card's really just good off of the Totem and Small Blood, more so than in your actual deck. But it can't really be buffed because then it's harder to self-wound flip. So it's either a meme card or it's an okay card or it's a niche card. You know what? I mean, because it's down here doesn't mean it has to stay. I think this card's okay. I'm putting it okay because of the Artis synergies and the Lippy synergies. Priest is pretty good, mostly for regular self-wound. Great way to trigger your Drakars. Great way to get value over time from self-wound. 2 a turn is really nice on this if you're getting the self-wound synergies or hitting armor. Draco Turtle, you're getting like 3 a turn, so has some good synergies. You're getting 2.5 a turn on Drakar actually because the card triggers, but overall, pretty solid card. This one's Ravager, right? This one's Ravager. Yeah, Ravager. So 2 damage and Bloodthirst 2 bleeding. As we said, there's a lot of conditional 7 damage stuff in Skellige. This one doesn't hit the mark. Because as we said, that doesn't hit the mark. It's just not quite good enough. 5 with 2 conditional bleeding is technically 7 in value, but it needs a little bit of setup. And bleeding takes a little bit of time, so I don't think it's quite good enough. Tears of the Siren is a meme card. That's where it's going. Tears of the Siren is an alchemy. It spawns 2 turns of rain and spawns a siren in the opposite row. Now I said that Little Half-Root, which is a 6 that can spawn 2 turns of rain by going down to a 2, is a good card. So why am I saying Tears of the Siren is a meme card when they both end up with 2 points on your board and 2 turns of rain on the opponent's board? Surely I'm being inconsistent. No, I'm not. The difference here is that there's the bonded upside on Little Half-Root. It has the ability to get healed back, which you're going to probably have from things like the Kelpie. Well, that's boosting back, not healing, but you know what I mean. And Tears of the Siren, you just don't want it. You want units, things you can revive. You can Freya's Blessing this, which is good. You want things you can recover the damage on this, which gives it more value. The bondage gives it more value. The value is just not there in Tears of the Siren, and it will never be there, so it's going to stay here. Next up, we have the Axe Flinger. Terror Crew Axe Flinger, I believe. This card is interesting. I think on paper this card's not too bad. It does 2 damage, and then when it loses its armor, it does 2 random damage, which is a total of 8. Right, yeah, 2 damage and 2 random when exposed. I think this card's okay. I just think it doesn't have a good deck to go in. I think it doesn't have a good deck to go in. But on paper, it's not too bad. If you ever played a self-wound deck, the self-wound payoffs you want to be repeatable. So, for example, Drakkar. Each time you go, you can hit 2 self-wound into this and keep getting value. That's nice. Stuff like a Draco Turtle keeps getting its armor back. Stuff like Sigvald, you can keep getting the value back. Things like Olgierd Immortal, it's still there, you keep getting the value. This is a one-time value, which isn't really what you're looking for most of the time, but it's not too bad. So we'll give it an okay. I think that there's probably a spot for this somewhere. I just don't know where it is, but the value is enough that it might be all right in a self-wound deck. Terror Crew, Plunder, same deal. Same deal. Not a bad way to activate your self-wounds. Stuff like the Butcher. Where's Butcher? This is better than Butcher, I think. And the fact is that this has the flexibility. You can actually use it does 2 damage, and if it was an allied unit, it gets +4 boost. So you can actually kill an enemy unit with it if you really need to. But I think it's better than Butcher. The question is it a tier above the Butcher or not? I think I'll put it here. I do see this card played occasionally. That doesn't mean it's good, though. Look, I believe it here. I'll come back to it. Hideaway's okay. The ship here. Boost by 1 for each pirate in your hand. Obviously, that is sometimes useful. Well, that we did this wrong again. Sorry, guys. We're getting there. Almost done. And there is Tidecloak Hideaway. Yeah, boost allied unit by 1 for each pirate in your hand. Not that bad. But primarily only a one-of Otkel ship when you want an extra ship in your deck, because fun fact enough, Boat Builders is not a ship, even though sometimes people think it is. But yeah, this is sometimes a one-of extra ship in Otkel, and that kind of places it in the okay tier, where, Otkel Pirates, it's an okay one-of. Makes sense to me. Archer, before it got changed. Let's just see if there's anything else with the remove here. We should be good. Let's just remove that here. Some of the cards have multiple names in the game files when I originally extracted them, which is why stuff like this happens. I try to catch it, but I didn't catch all of them, obviously. Next up, we have Chursek Execute Guy. Execute Guy. This, let's take a look here. I won't click on them. So we have Skirmisher, Veteran, Bearmaster. Is this Warrior? Axeman. Okay, Axeman. So damaged a unit by the amount is already damaged. That's why I call it Execute. It finishes them off. That being said, it's not very good. If it's been damaged by 3, I could just kill it with a 3 damage card and not have to worry about it. If it's been damaged by like 4 already, so like 1 health, this feels like a waste. If it's whether this is good is when it's damaged by exactly half its health and the amount remaining is 4 or more. That's when this card really shines. That is very uncommon. So I'm going to say this card is pretty weak. Is it bad? For bronzes, bad's like a tier where it needs double buffs to be playable, in my opinion, when I'm considering about where I'm putting them. Because weak cards, I'm thinking if it gets buffed 1 time, it might be good or playable. Bad cards, I think, need multiple buffs. That's how I'm ranking them here. So I think if this was 6, would it be okay? Probably. If it's 5, would it be okay? You still want to hit exactly half, which means the threshold's then a 6 at 3 becomes higher than average value, and a 4 at 2 becomes average 7 for 4 value. No, it's going down here. Next up, Bearmaster. Recently buffed. Recently buffed by a power. Gets +1 for each unique beast on your board. And then his orders, he loses his boost and damages that many enemy units by the amount. 2 phenomenal synergies for this card. One is obviously Alula. You Alula double up on the damage. You play the Bearmaster, the opponent has 6 units, you hit 6 units with the Bearmaster, they take 12 damage, you've doubled up. Fantastic. The other really good synergy is a fun one, actually, which is with Ulfadin, which is one I recently did and really enjoyed, and any other high Bloodthirst card. You get your guy to have a bunch of boosts. The Bearmaster then uses his order the next turn. He's hard to kill because he boosted himself. You hit like 4 or 5 units, set up a big Bloodthirst, Ulfadin, big Bloodthirst, Champion's Charge, something else like that. Very fun synergies. And the other thing is if you just have 5 beasts, it's an 8 for 4. So that's not uncommon. I'm going to rank the Bearmaster as pretty good now. I'll give it good. I think I'm high on this card, but we'll see. We might have to try some, I don't want to say it, we might have to try some Renfrey Beasts with in it to get an idea of the value. Maybe like a 7 Rain Kelpie with this. We'll see. Probably won't actually do it. I'll just talk about it and not actually do it because I don't really like playing that deck. But yeah, I think this card's actually pretty good now. One of the most innocuous cards here, Juristic Skirmisher. Has Veil, has Veteran. Really solid. Really solid. Empowered a lot by Drake, empowered a lot by Tyr, empowered a lot by War of Clans. But the fact this is and King of Bran, the fact that it's just like 7 or 8, depending on which round you're in, or 6 if you play it early. Early, you can just discard it. Later on, it actually plays for a decent amount of value with the Veil. The Veil really matters because it's what lets you triple up on Drake. Because you bring this back with like a War of Clans, a Freya's Blessing or something, it won't get the Doomed because the Veil is inherent on the card. It'll have the Veil when the card tries to give it Doomed when you play it, so it blocks it. Whereas something like Ciri Nova that has Deploy gain Veil would get the Doomed first. Not that you could revive her, but as an example. Is there a way to renew Ciri Nova? There is, because there's enough random ways you could do it. You can always do the 2 Treasure Brothers that everyone forgets about that spawn create a random legendary card or something. But yeah, a good solid card here. Let's not get too off the rails here. Skirmisher. Skirmisher we have, Skirmisher, that was Invader. I get their names mixed up, guys. I am sorry. This is Invader. Skirmisher is the discard one. Excellent card. When discarded, it comes back to your board in the melee row. 3 points of tempo when you're cycling your deck with discards. I think that warrants it being up here. Very strong effect. It gives you tempo while you're cycling. Makes really good sense to me. Next up, we have Tirsek Veteran. Berserk 3 heals himself. It's not great, to be honest. Yeah, it's not great. So if we take a look at him, he damages himself by 3, so it's a 5 for 5, and Berserk 3 heals self. It's not... There are other better ways to pay this off. To pay off self wound, right? Drakar's a 4 for 4 with the armor to pay off. It's just better. You don't usually need that many ways to pay off self wound, which is the issue we're running into here. So I think he's a bit weak. Also, he's expensive. Like 5 is a bit expensive for your payoff card, right? I mean, 5 for 5 is not great. It dies. Yes, the upside is if you damage it down to 3, it heals. If it heals to a 8 for 5, that's not even exceptionally good. That's the real problem here. Next up, we have War of Clans, which I will just throw up here. I think War of Clans is an excellent card. It's damage, 2 damage, plus bringing back a 4-person warrior. Often that 4-person warrior is the invader with boost. Often, if that's not the case, you're going to bring back a Brockfar warrior. I think it's really good. It triggers Tyr. It's very flexible. Extra damage from the Highland Warlord just makes us kill stuff and play things. Overall, I think this card's excellent. Next up and lastly, we have the Whale Harpooner, whose actual name is Whale Harpooner. Nice, I got it right. And strong, getting the last card's name right. Whale Harpooner is very strange. It is, in effect, a wide punish, but it's a wide punish by doing tall damage to one card. Harpooner's often just better used when you create it off of something than actually playing it. I'm going to give this a week. You don't really play this in your own deck, because often when you want to move a unit, you're responding to something the opponent has done, and that often happens early in the round when they don't have many cards. So if you harpoon a unit and move it to the row by itself, it takes 1 damage. And besides, if they're going wide and row stacking, you have to, if you move it out of the stacked row, it's only taking a damage. So if you move it into a stacked row to give it a bunch of damage. It's just pretty awkward. Yeah. No, I'm putting this down another tier. It's not good. And guys, that is the Skellige tier list. Let's go over it real quick here. See if there's anything we feel like moving. I see some controversial ones up here. Looking back on it, do I really consider Ermion and Darren to be in this tier? I think Ermion I do, because you really need him for alchemy. And then also Dex playing Synchronous Right, like having him. Plus, Right and Blessing is a pretty common package, even in Golden Necker. So I think I keep him here. The question is Darren. I'm gonna keep Darren here too. I think that's fine. This is very controversial. He'd be the last card in this tier if I ranked them by how good I thought they were. It'd be like the bottom card in the excellent tier. This all seems good. Obviously, within the tiers, they're not ranked. If they were, we'd have a real argument here between Svalbard, Fuchsia, Magic Compass, and Care Troll Day, maybe. Not Care Troll Day, the other one we mentioned earlier. Tier. As far as the bronzes, yeah, this all looks pretty good. I think these are all pretty similar power levels. Maybe you can argue these two go down, but I like them here. Coral Burna. I said earlier we might move them up later. And I do. I'm moving them up. I think they belong in this top tier. The cycling with tempo is just so important for a lot of decks. I do think they deserve to be up here. I was hesitant in the beginning, but I think now, we look at this tier, I do think they belong up here. The rest of this seems pretty good. Ooh, Morkvarg. I think he belongs to be up here too. I think that's where he would go alphabetically. Oh, you'd be in front of Corrupted Flamingo. There we go. So would you. I think I like that better. Obviously, within the tiers, they're not ranked. Morkvarg, I think, belongs up here because he works really well with Blaze of Glory. He works really well with Lippy. And he's just really great to discard with tempo as well. I think this is warranted. I might be overvaluing the discard package, but I don't think so. I think it's really strong. Just not consistent, but it's still really strong. It's consistent enough by round 3. Just round 1 or 2, it's not the most consistent thinning package. As far as bronze is in here, yeah, that seems good to me. I don't know what's up with Seagull. There's got to be something that uses Seagull nowadays. If you guys have a Seagull deck that uses Seagull really well, let me know. Other than Run-Free Beast, because I know they still play it. Yeah, these all make sense to me. Maybe this one and this one deserve to go down. These are the ones I'm unsure about. Oh, these 3, actually. The problem is if you buff this at 5, because I consider the weak cards like cards that could use a buff. But if you buff this to 5, it's too hard to self-wound trigger. So you would never do that. But I don't think it's a meme card. I think it has a place. And we'll leave it here. We'll leave these here. These 3 are the bottom 3, though, for sure. The bottom 3 of this tier are these 3. And then this one as well. Niche. Yep. Weak. Arsenal at 7 might be too good. Or 5. I don't... Whatever. It doesn't get played ever. So we'd have to experiment and find out. Can't be too afraid of changes. That being said, some changes are obviously broken. This all seems fine. This seems fine. Those are the things I'm considering. Maybe that. Double buff, I think this would be good. Double buff, would this be good? 3 with 3 boost and heal. It would have to heal. Just 3 power. It'd have a 9 ceiling and be 6 floor. It'd have to heal 1 or 2. Druids wouldn't care because Druids boost. They don't need to heal. The Battle Trance already heals them. So that'd be a tech card and something else. No, that's going down there. Then Donar and Joanna. Joanna, I think there might be some hope for. I'm putting this down here because after thinking about it, the Druid synergy means this would never be used in a Druid deck because they already heal with Battle Trance. They don't really need the healing on this. They want their units, they want their 4-person cards to be things that play alchemies or are alchemies. So you wouldn't play this. This would have to be a tech card in a self-wound type deck. And it would have to get double buffed to 3. And even then, I don't think so. I'm going to leave this here. I might be hating on this card. I do love the art, but this might be in bad. I think it has to be buffed like 3 times to be playable, though. And that's kind of where I'm at the limit of it's probably never happening, and it would become a meme card. We'll leave it here and have hope. We'll just leave it here and have hope. Let's have hope, guys. Anyway, that's the Skellige tier list. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree. I'll probably put a link in the comments to make your own, or in the descriptions you make your own. But let me know what you guys think, and we'll see you next time.